Chapter 1309. The Void Spirit, the Fallen Divine Tree, and Diggs entered the passage opened by the heaven-void mirror one after another. Soon after, Pei Yuling disappeared along with the heaven-void mirror. Diggs, who had regained his youth, gave him and Brisette a satisfied smile before he left. The others didn't do anything special. During this process, the Empress, who stood on top of the strange, verdant tree, watched in silence. She didn't do anything to stop them, as if she knew that it was too late to change anything. The current chief of the dark spirit race sighed softly, as if he had accepted his fate. Yu Yuan knew that the god of the origin world's plan against this shattered galaxy had probably achieved their goal, even if they hadn't won a complete victory. A series of green divine lights were released, and the pleasant, verdant tree turned back into the heavenly wood scepter of the dark spirit race. Brisette smiled bitterly. Standing on the scepter, which was covered with withered vines, he shook his head and said, "I didn't expect that after thousands of years, the broken Milky Way, which had evolved into the famous alien battlefield, would have such abundant supernatural energy. It had really allowed it to grow." After the fallen divine tree had shown its true power, many powerful powers had suddenly emerged from the exploding meteors, altars, and the dark galaxy. He finally realized that the experts, beasts, and demons who had died in the domain of dark spirit race over the past thousands of years had all left behind power. Most of the power they had left behind hadn't left the alien battlefield. It had either merged with the meteors or scattered in the galaxy, becoming tainted power that was harmful to living beings. As a result, the seemingly shattered domain of dark spirit race actually contained a vast amount of power that was beyond anyone's imagination. The fallen divine tree, on the other hand, had only relied on the nourishment of living beings like Zhu Huan, the deep-sea giant winged lizard, and members of other races in the early stages. In the later stages, the fallen divine tree, which had recovered part of its wondrous talents, had directly absorbed all the hidden power in the galaxy. It had grown unstoppably, grown rapidly, and bloomed with lush leaves. Whoosh! Yu Yuan controlled the rocks under his feet and flew towards Chen Qinghuang and Brisette. His heart was full of confusion, and he wanted to figure out what had happened. That defiled and corrupted divine tree grew with the help of the Dark Forest Star System's massive arcana. Diggs has consumed the fruit and obtained eternal life. He will soon ascend to rank 10 bloodline. Brisette sighed. The gravel under Yu Yuan's feet slowly came to a stop. He stared at Chen Qinghuang, who was floating in the air after the strange tree transformed into the sky-wood scepter, and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" For some reason, he felt that Her Majesty wasn't in a good state either. It seemed like he was about to enter a deep slumber again, when he had been pulled into that strange world by the will of the god of the origin realm. Chen Qinghuang had been facing the combined forces of the void spirit and the fallen divine tree. He and the dragon beheading platform had disappeared together. The dragon beheading platform's natural counterweight to the void spirit and the fallen divine tree had also lost its effect. The collapse of the full spirit realm naturally stopped as well. It was not easy for the undying bird, which had not recovered to its peak, to fight against two equally ancient life forms in a territory that had been set up by others. "I'm wounded. I won't die." Chen Qinghuang's expression was as indifferent as usual. He glanced at the old Brisette and said, "You're still alive, and the sky-wood scepter is still in your hands. At least you're not completely defeated." She then looked at Yu Yuan. "None of us are dead. This is an acceptable result. What is there to feel sorry for?" Brisette had a bitter expression and stopped sighing. He had gone from the respected patriarch of the dark spirit race, the 7th strongest bloodline expert in the universe, to suddenly fall to rank 8 bloodline and lose everything he had. It was hard for him to accept. The difference was too great. Especially when he thought about how Diggs would reappear in the universe with a rank 10 bloodline and gather his original subordinates and subordinates. Diggs had the matured fallen divine tree and the origin realm behind him. Who in the dark spirit race could stop him? Are the others okay? Yu Yuan asked again. They've retreated to the edge of the Martial Forest star system. Most of them are alive. Chen Qinghuang said expressionlessly. The power left behind in the shattered universe for tens of millions of years is enough to make it mature. It doesn't have to spend too much effort to reach the edge of the star system. It's a thankless task. Hearing this, Yu Yuan felt slightly relieved. Then, he said, I was suddenly pulled into an unfamiliar world. It was desolate and empty, just like right now. Diggs stood on the surface of a rippled sea like the immovable heart of the world. Beneath the ripples, there was the presence of an endless abyss and enormous beings. Without missing a single detail, Yu Yuan went on to describe what he had gone through just now. Chen Qinghuang listened seriously. Even Brissette was completely silent, listening to his novel experience with a very attentive expression, for fear of missing a word or a detail. He knew that this might be the first time the will of the god of the origin realm had cast a spell in this part of the universe. He needed to know everything to prepare for his future fight against the god of the origin realm, the fallen divine tree, and Diggs. Can you remember anything from this? After finally explaining everything, Yu Yuan looked deeply at Chen Qinghuang and humbly asked for guidance. The Empress shook her head. I won't know if I have any memories of this until I reach the level of my former power and integrate my present with my past memories. She paused for a moment before continuing in an indifferent tone, as if the matter had nothing to do with her. The god of the origin world of unknown origins is about to have the support of 3 transcendent existences. That divine butterfly, that fallen tree, and Diggs who is about to break through. We don't have to deal with the trouble it's causing. It should be a headache for Beltans, the Shenhun sect, and the Howran. Chen Qinghuang said this with a hint of schadenfreude, as if he wanted to see the world in chaos. Yu Yuan was shocked. What does the domain of Dark Forest have to do with me, the fallen divine tree's growth, and the infiltration of the god of the origin realm? She curled her lips and looked coldly at Brissette. I just happened to be there and gave you a hand, so that your race's holy tool wouldn't shatter and you could survive. Then, a hint of regret finally appeared in her voice. It's a pity that I couldn't take that fruit from Diggs and give it to you. She finally looked at Yu Yuan. Yu Yuan was surprised. The fruit Diggs swallowed is beneficial to me? Chen Qinghuang nodded. The yang divine body refined with the refined amber of the Chaos Kuan and Grek's blood-colored crystal contains the power of the origin of life. However, the origin of life is all about fleshly life, while the fruit on that tree contains the wonders of another kind of life. Forget it. Let's wait and see. Her tone was very casual. The fallen divine tree will appear again after the domain of Dark Forest, and it will probably continue to produce fruits. Next time, we just need to take advantage of the opportunity. Yu Yuan turned pale with shock. The domain of Dark Forest had turned to nothingness, the fallen divine tree had grown, Diggs was about to advance to the 10th grade, and the will of the god of the origin realm had clearly strengthened. However, Chen Qinghuang's expression made it seem as if everything that had happened in front of them was nothing. It couldn't arouse her interest. She didn't feel dispirited by this failure at all. Her indifference actually made Yu Yuan feel a little better. He didn't think that this great change in the domain of Dark Forest could affect his firm Tao heart. Suddenly, a bird cry came from afar. Yu Yuan's eyebrows twitched. He knew it was the gray goose and felt relieved. The gray goose was fine, the frigid realm snow bear was probably alive, and Yen Qiling and the others were probably still alive. Not long after, an enormous gray goose suddenly appeared in everyone's field of vision. 3 winged race elders, 2 men and 1 woman, were standing on the gray goose's slender neck. The 3 old men, who clearly had the characteristics of the winged race, looked at Chen Qinghuang with feverish eyes. Even from a distance, They trembled as they knelt on the gray goose's neck, and said something in a dreamlike voice. The three-winged race elders were sobbing, tears flowing down their faces. Chen Qinghuang, who stood proudly in the air, showed some gentleness in her cold eyes. She nodded slowly, and the three-winged race elders finally looked up. Brisset was shocked. He recognized one of the three-winged race elders. In Brisset's memory, that elder was even older than Diggs. It was said that he had died a long time ago. He hadn't expected to see him again. Elder Lucia, is it? You? Brisset's hands couldn't help but grab the withered vines on the skywood scepter. He looked at the female winged race elder on the gray goose's neck, his tone full of disbelief. The old woman with a head of messy gray hair that fell on the gray goose's neck seemed to have merged with its feathers. She nodded with a smile. Then she said, "Little Brisset, I heard that you were quite disrespectful to the winged race's guardian not long ago." As she spoke, she rubbed the gray goose's neck. It was obvious who she was referring to. "It's really you." Brisset was pleasantly surprised. In his memory, this winged race elder named Lucia was a person that even the previous patriarch of the dark spirit race respected greatly. According to the previous patriarch, Lucia had an immortal body and would never die. However, not long after Brisset obtained the Skywood Scepter and became the patriarch of the dark spirit race, he heard from the winged race that Lucia was dead. He didn't expect that Lucia, who was rumored to be dead, would reappear on the gray goose with two equally old winged race elders. It was obvious that he had traveled thousands of miles to meet Chen Qinghuang and specially welcome her back. "There's no need to send me off. I should go back." While Brisset was still in shock, Chen Qinghuang floated away. In the blink of an eye, she arrived on top of the gray goose's head and said to Yu Yuan, the three-winged race elders were on the gray goose's neck, but she was on the bird's head, proudly stepping on the gray goose. Their statuses were clearly different. "Return to the winged race's territory?" Yu Yuan said with a complicated expression. "Return to my own territory." Chen Qinghuang corrected him, then looked at Brisset and said with an unquestionable attitude, "It has fallen. From now on, the dark spirit race and the winged race will all listen to me." Brisset was at a loss. "Little Brisset, are you still stubborn?" Lucia said in a low voice. As if she had been enlightened, the current patriarch of the dark spirit race suddenly woke up. She lowered her head and saluted Chen Qinghuang in the distance, saying, "I will follow your instructions." Chapter 13:10. Without any reluctance, Chen Qinghuang left as soon as she said she would, without any hesitation. Yu Yuan watched as the gray goose spread its broad wings gracefully and flew towards the winged race's star domain after she let out a soft cry. Brisset, who was sitting on top of the giant scepter, pulled herself together and followed after Qin Lai. With the gray goose in front and the heavenly wood scepter behind, they gradually went further and further away. This scene was imprinted in the depths of Yu Yuan's heart, and it instantly caused him to have a wonderful feeling. From now on, the status of the dark spirit race and the winged race would be reversed once more. From now on, the winged race would be the dominant race once more. They would rise unstoppably, and the dark spirit race might fall into silence for a while. Then, just like how the dark spirit race had protected the winged race for many years, the winged race would protect the dark spirit race. The awakening of Chen Qinghuang, the gathering of power, the return of the winged race after 100,000 years, and the appearance of the three old men who looked like they were about to die, were destined to bring the winged race to a new height. Maybe the three old men had taken a liking to someone extraordinary in the winged race, and were waiting for Chen Qinghuang's return to help him ascend to rank 10 bloodline. Once a rank 10 supreme warrior of the winged race appeared, many rank 9 warriors would pop up because of Chen Qinghuang. Then, the winged race would naturally return to the ranks of the first tier. Clearly, she has her own responsibilities and mission. A while later, Yu Yuan nodded softly and smiled in relief. The god of the origin realm had officially extended its tentacles to this vast universe and started its first battle in the dark forest star system. The surrender of the void spirits, the creation of the fallen divine tree, and Diggs's immortal life. All kinds of strange things that had happened here would spread quickly. There were many intelligent races in outer space, such as the heavenly devils, the radiant race, the azura race, and the demonesses. The humans of Hauran, the great demons of the Shenhun sect, and even the Chaos Koan-like giant star beasts. There was no need for Yu Yuan to think too deeply about it. He knew that all the clans and formidable powers would truly pay attention to the god of origin world, and they'd attach great importance to this matter. Chen Qinghuang, who was welcomed back by 3 old men of the winged race, must have a lot of things to deal with. Yu Yuan was alone in the empty, desolate, cold, and gloomy starry sky. He slowly sat down on the small meteorite. Then, he calmly combed his mind and pondered, when he was pulled into that strange world, when he faced the will of the god of the origin world that had descended upon Diggs, did that person see through the secrets of his soul? Did that person know that he had a past of 3 lives? Especially in the first life. Did the god of the origin world notice it? If he did, then what would that god of origin world do? The void spirits, the fallen divine tree, and Diggs could all be used by him. Was it possible that they could secretly assassinate him in the future? What kind of monster is the god of the origin realm? Yu Yuan's heart grew heavier and heavier. He silently reflected on the defeat he had suffered in the domain of dark forest. The dragon-subduing platform had stopped glowing with boundless light a long time ago. It sank back into his acupoints. He secretly probed himself. He felt that if the soul imprint of his first life hadn't slowly awakened in his main soul at the most critical moment and activated the dragon-subduing platform's shocking divine might, he wouldn't have been able to return to the realm he was in. Perhaps he, Diggs, the void spirits, and the fallen divine tree had been corrupted by the god of the origin world. Because of that, they had become loyal believers and served him with all their hearts. If that was the case, Chen Qinghuang would have suffered serious injuries in the real world. The heavenly wood scepter would have shattered and merged back into the mature fallen divine tree. Brizette would have died. An even more extreme calamity would have occurred. The starry sky that had turned into nothingness would have exploded even faster. It would have been so fast that Grey Goose, the frigid snow bear, Yen Qiling, Beirut, and the others wouldn't even have time to escape. If that happened, all lives would have been destroyed. The origin world. Feeling cold all over, Yu Yuan subconsciously looked down at her lower body. Fortunately, it was only empty space, and not the colorful ripples on the surface of the sea. There wasn't a bottomless abyss of darkness under him that hid an enormous unknown being that wanted to charge out of it. After a self-mocking smile, he summoned the dragon-subduing platform, the scabbard of the heaven-raising sword, and Gendo's blood prison one after another. He touched and felt one by one. Then, he sent his Een spirit out and tried to understand the empty space around him. He wanted to see if there was anything that existed in it. There was no sound, no wind, no light source. There was no supernatural power that he could touch or sense. He couldn't sense anything. The dragon-subduing platform, the scabbard, and Gendo couldn't gather even the tiniest bit of energy from this empty space. It's said that the giant lizard of the star behemoths is the only creature that can touch the abyss. It started exploring the boundaries of the starry sky a long time ago and traveled to the other side. There's a saying that the boundaries of the starry sky are eternal desolation and emptiness. It's also said that the remnants of the Shenhun sect in the early years opened up that emptiness and moved about in that desolate land. Yu Yuan thought hard. Could the giant lizard of the abyss come from under the colorful ripples? It's like an enormous unknown being that keeps colliding with the spatial ripples, trying to break through some mysterious realm barrier and appear in our universe? A series of thoughts flashed through his mind like lightning. There was no concept of time in this empty space. Yu Yuan sat there for an unknown amount of time. After his Yin spirit left his body, he could go from this empty space to the void thousands of kilometers away with a single thought. However, it didn't mean anything. After his Yin spirit left, the area it appeared in was still empty and desolate. Other than that, there was nothing else in the room. He didn't know when, but a huge sense of loneliness welled up in his heart. It was as if in this world, in this boundless space, he was the only living being, the only consciousness that existed. In fact, it was indeed so. His Yin spirit was still flying around freely, without any restraint. In his boredom, he focused all his mind and attention on the Yin spirit in the form of a spirit and tried to use some of the subtleties of the great Yin spirit art. To his surprise, he discovered that his Yin spirit could move about freely in this empty and desolate place. It did not seem to consume much energy at all. When he activated his soul power and used it to cast some exquisite soul spells, his Yin spirit could also change its form. It could condense into the image of a huge demon god, or transform into the image of a lofty mountain range, a river, a lake, or the image of many great demons. All of these changes seemed easy and not difficult at all. In addition, the limit of his Yin spirit's perception seemed to be greatly increased. Whoosh! A bit of Yin sunflower essence hidden in a hidden acupoint quietly flew out and merged with his Yin spirit that was using the great Yin spirit art. It actually began to cleanse and purify the tiny impurities in his Yin spirit. Then, even more Yin sunflower essence flew out as if summoned by the Yin god. The Yin sunflower essence that originated from the source of the Yin veins in the land of despair was not much left. This miraculous item could be combined with the 9 slashes of raising the heavens to unleash a terrifying power when killing ghouls and evil spirit. Now, those bits of Yin sunflower essence were all sucked out by his Yin spirit. He used his Yin spirit to refine the Yin sunflower essence and purify his soul. His perception, intelligence, spirituality, and all kinds of wonders related to the soul were all improved. He suddenly realized that even if his Yang spirit was not forged, his Yin spirit could continue to be refined and grow infinitely. This was the profoundness of the great Yin spirit art. The dragon-slaying platform placed in front of him and the blood soul in the demon blade also yearned for that bit of Yin sunflower essence. It was as if the dragon beheading platform and Gendo would also be strengthened if the Yin sunflower essence merged with them. This made Yu Yuan even more shocked, and she became even more curious about the Yin sunflower essence. She also desired to obtain more of it. However, the Yin sunflower essence seemed to only exist in the land of despair, as if it was always hidden in the source of the Yin veins. If he wanted more Yin sunflower essence, he would have to return to the Howran Great World and go to the land of despair. Fortunately, the ancestor of the Yu clan had become the supreme ghost god of the land of despair. If he could return, he should be able to obtain more Yin sunflower essence and use it to nourish his Yin spirit and open up more small worlds in his acupoints. Yu Yuan suddenly sensed something. He didn't know how far away from him, but in another void, the 7 abominations seemed to have lost their way and were running around like headless flies. This was what his Yin spirit saw with its infinite perception. In just an instant, his Yin spirit in the form of a spirit appeared where the 7 abominations were. The 7 abominations, who had lost their bodies and only had 7 poisonous streams left, were in pure liquid form. Looking at the illusory figure in the form of a spirit, they immediately fled in fear. "It's me," Yu Yuan sent a message. The multicolored 7 loaves was startled by his message, and then suddenly took shape. It took the form of a crude human. "Why, you're still alive?" The 7 abominations opened its mouth to speak. Its voice was very ethereal, as if it came from another time and space. "What I'm curious about is that you're still alive," Yu Yuan said softly in his pure spirit form. He didn't know why, But when he looked at the 7 abominations in front of him and sensed the strange liquid body refined by the 7 poisonous streams, he felt that if he wanted to, he could send his spirit into the 7 abominations and devour it until not even a trace of its soul or consciousness was left. What the fallen god tree couldn't do didn't seem to be difficult for him in his pure spirit form. What surprised him even more was that as soon as this thought appeared in his mind, his spirit naturally changed accordingly. It transformed from its original spiritual form into a swirling vortex. The vortex seemed to be a soul hell, formed by the fiend demons in the fiend demon cauldron. Feeling great terror, the 7 abominations screeched and retreated. Yu Yuan, I didn't betray you. I don't know why the full spirit world suddenly overflowed with a mysterious power that made the evil divine tree grow madly and extend endlessly into the outside world. That woman only cared about Brizette of the dark spirit race. She didn't care about me at all. You disappeared again. What could I do? I could only run away, just like Yen Qiling, Wei Zhua of the lightning sect, and the snow bear and gray goose. The 7 abominations cried out as he retreated, expressing his grievances. From the strange form of Yu Yuan's spirit, he smelled a terrifying power that could destroy him. He thought that Yu Yuan hated him for running away, so he kept explaining. His performance made Yu Yuan realize the wonders of the great spirit art once more. Chapter 13:11. The panicked shouts of the 7 evils of alien demon allowed Yu Yuan to learn many details of what had happened earlier. The full spirit world had suddenly started to overflow. It was probably the mysterious ability of the origin realm. The appearance of the ability had accelerated the growth of the fallen god tree and increased the combat power of the void spirit. When the sharp branches of the fallen god tree had pierced into the outside world, the ability from the origin realm had spread as well. Fortunately, it wasn't so fast that it couldn't be avoided. Qin Qing Huang sensed the drastic change in the full spirit world, the terror that could turn everything into nothingness, and the unstoppable power of the filthy divine tree. She was gradually being suppressed by the spirit of the void. Therefore, they either fled on their own or were persuaded by others to leave. The 7 evils of alien demon was just one of them. The reason he had appeared again in this place of nothingness was because Wei Zhua of the Thunder sect and Xiao Yuling of the Thunder Tao sect were outside. Both of them had the power to kill him easily and harbored ill intentions against him. He had returned out of fear. The others remained cautious. They might be at the edge of other star systems, waiting for an opportunity to turn the tide. When Yu Yuan thought about it, she knew that the Wanderer was actually afraid. They were afraid of the mysterious god of the origin realm, the void spirits, and the fallen god tree. Before the situation was clear, they didn't dare to enter recklessly. They were afraid that they would be pulled in and end up in a miserable state. After all, those who had left during the chaos, such as Wei Zhua and Su Jingyao, had seen the patriarch of the dark spirit race, Brizette. This supreme bloodline expert had almost died in the full spirit world, and his bloodline had plummeted because of it. Who would dare to enter the full spirit world because of this? Only experts at the level of Baylor of the Star Race or Shura of Gojoseon would have the confidence to enter the full spirit world and explore. However, when he thought of the immortal bird from 100,000 years ago that had been at a disadvantage after awakening, even people like Baylor and Shura of Gojoseon would treat it seriously. They probably wouldn't be able to enter alone. Several rank 10 experts would have to work together to have a chance of victory. However, the situation in the universe right now was too complicated. It was impossible for the top experts of the alien races to gather and march to this place without caring about anything. Yu Yuan asked again and learned that Beirut, Leo, and Denise should have returned to the Drag Illusion Star Zone. Yen Qiling, Yen Xiang, Mo Air, and the others had most likely gone to the Silver Scale Race's domain of Silver Sand, where there was a spatial passageway leading to the demonic abyss of calamity. Soon, Yu Yuan figured out the situation. Chen Qinghuang, the Grey Goose, the three elders of the winged race, and Brisette's group had left before him. The 7 evils of strange demon didn't encounter them, so he didn't know. Yu Yuan assumed that Chen Qinghuang, the winged man, and Brisette had gone to the dark wing domain. The Star Race's Shadow Illusion Starfield, the Azura Race's Firefly Starfield, the Silver Scale Race's Silver Sand Starfield, and the Dark Wing Starfield bordering the Dark Wing Starfield. Originally, he had wanted to escort Chen Qinghuang to the Dark Wing Starfield. Wei Zhua, those from the Thunder Tao sect, and those survivors from the Howren, such as that junior from Xuantianzong, will probably go to the domain of Silver Sand. While Nie Tian was pondering, 7 evils reminded him in a low voice. We need to find a new foothold for that mobile ferry of stars built by the Howren. This desolate and empty land can no longer be used as a foothold for the ferry of stars. It's meaningless. Baylor showed up in the domain of shadow illusion before, so they don't dare to go there. I heard that the 2 9th grade Azura warriors who showed up in the domain of shadow illusion are now in the domain of Firefly. They also have a dark realm cold well with them, which can communicate with the Dark Realm at any time to welcome the arrival of the Shura of Gojoseon. Therefore, I don't think anyone will choose to go to the domain of Firefly at this time. As for the domain of Dark Wing, even 7 evils' liquid-like body seemed to be trembling as he spoke. It's very likely that the evil giant tree, Diggs, will make the domain of Dark Wing their next target. After all, just like the domain of Nightmare Forest, the domain of Dark Wing is also covered in forests and marshes, which are suitable for the giant tree to grow and grow. This hybrid devil, who had been born in the colorful cloud miasma sea, seemed to have changed after experiencing this heaven-destroying, earth-extinguishing calamity. He completely restrained his arrogance and calmly thought about what to do next. After breaking free from the floating life realm and gaining true freedom, he discovered that the world in front of him had changed so much that it could even be said to be earth-shattering. He was filled with unfamiliarity with this new heaven and earth. He had never even heard of the so-called God of the Origin world before. He had never expected it to be so terrifying. For some reason, powerful experts like Brisette had their bloodline power taken away by the giant evil tree and dropped to the 9th grade. The immortal bird, who had spread destruction and death, had been reborn in the form of a human, and now had an incomparably close relationship with the mysterious Yu Yuan. Too many strange things had overturned his understanding of the world, forcing him to reconsider and examine himself. Yu Yuan nodded slowly as he listened. A while later, he made up his mind and said, "Let's go to the Silver Scales domain of Silver Sand." 7 evils begged, "Take me with you. Then, please help me survive. I'm afraid of the Lightning Element sect and the Thunder Slaughter sect." "I'll do my best." Yu Yuan's response was neither cold nor warm. The reason why he had chosen the domain of Silver Sand was because he knew that Yen Qiling and Yu Yi had traveled from the demonic abyss of calamity to Silver Sand through the realm passageway. Similarly, when the domain of Nightmare Forest had become like this, they should have retreated from the domain of Silver Sand. If the experts of the Shenhun sect and the Tongtian Trading Company had received Yen Qiling's call for help and come to the domain of Nightmare Forest, they should have retreated from the domain of Silver Sand. Furthermore, he had learned that the silver scales had been created by the Abyss Lizard, just like the deep-sea giant winged lizard. He was very curious about the mysterious abyss. He wanted to find out if the abyss and the origin realm were the same thing, and what secrets they hid. Since the abyss lizard was the only behemoth that could touch the abyss, he wanted to find clues about it from the intelligent beings he had created. "Wait for me," Yu Yuan exclaimed. Wait for what?" "Wait for the real me." After an unknown period of time, Yu Yuan's true form finally arrived on the other side of the dragon-slaying platform through the connection between her and her Een deity. Do you know how to get to the domain of silver sand? The two Qin Chens, one in his true form and the other in his Een soul, asked at the same time. Seven Evils shook his head. I'm lost. There's nothing in this void that can help me find my way. I can't even tell front from back, left from right, up from down. If that's the case, you can stay here for now, Seven Evil's true form said softly. However, his Een soul vanished without a trace in a split second. The Een spirit had turned into a dead galaxy of nothingness, but he was able to swim freely without any restraints. His speed was extremely fast, thousands of times faster than his original body. Perhaps it was because he didn't have any special abilities, shattered meteors, debris in the starry river, or any other substances that were harmful to his soul, that his Een soul was unhindered. In other domains, he would have suffered minor injuries if he had simply released his Een soul, not to mention flying as freely as he was doing now. Even with the fiendish demon cauldron, it would have taken him months to travel from one border to the other in the domain of dark forest. But now, in this cold and empty land of death, it would not take long for his Een spirit to wander around. His true form and seven evils stayed in one place, while his Een soul continued to fly in the void of the domain of dark forest, searching for the direction to the domain of silver sand. After locating it, he and his true form would come to him. Gradually, his Een soul returned to the border between the domain of shadow illusion and the domain of shadow illusion. He could see dazzling stars and clusters of bright nebulas in the domain of shadow illusion. However, there seemed to be some kind of natural boundary between the various special abilities in the domain of shadow illusion and the void where he was. The void no longer spread or infiltrated the domain of shadow illusion. Similarly, the special abilities that were everywhere in the domain of shadow illusion, such as the tainted power, deadly toxins, streaks of light, and gusts of wind, didn't enter his Een soul either. The void where he was standing seemed to have truly become a void. It was clearly there, but there was a boundary between it and the domain of shadow illusion. Both sides minded their own business and were clearly separated from each other. They did not interact with each other at all. This discovery surprised him greatly, but he didn't understand why. After hesitating for a long time, his Een soul flew out again, giving rise to loud whistles. His Een soul appeared at the border of the Azura's domain of fireflies and the domain of dark wing, where Chen Qinghuang and the others had entered. Similar to the situation in the domain of shadow illusion, the domain of fireflies and the domain of dark wing didn't send any special abilities to this void either. It was as if the void in the domain of shadow illusion had been abandoned, and was no longer recognized. He couldn't help but think of the domain of annihilation he had been to before, where the Empress had been besieged and killed 100,000 years ago. However, no living creatures had survived, and no insects or spirit beasts had survived. Even though the stars in the void were dead, all kinds of special abilities still existed in the starry river. It was just that they were relatively sparse. The two were clearly different. The domain of annihilation and the so-called domains that had been reduced to dead silence by the immortal bird's destructive death power were actually just that there were no living creatures in them. Even though they were vast domains, there were still all kinds of mixed energies. Some stars even had the ability to breathe. Unlike the domain of shadow illusion, which didn't have any stars or continents at all, there were no special abilities that could allow him to perceive things, light or wind. This was the true dead silence of a domain. Yu Yuan came to a realization, and his Een soul continued to soar, searching for the difference. After an unknown period of time, he sensed the domain of silver sand that Seven Loaths had mentioned. From afar, he could see that the starry river, which looked like a veil of silver, was slowly pouring all kinds of special abilities into the void in the domain of shadow illusion. Unlike the domain of illusion, the domain of firefly, and the domain of dark wing, the special abilities in the domain of silver sand were flowing in this direction. Even though it was very slow, and Yu Yuan found it a little awkward, it was true. This shocking discovery convinced Yu Yuan of a guess he had in his heart. He believed that it was because the legendary abyss lizard had once appeared in the domain of silver sand that its power was slowly pouring into the void in the domain of shadow illusion. Not only had it not been abandoned, but it had even started to accept it. Judging from the efficiency of the domain of silver sand's energy flow to the void in the domain of shadow illusion, it might take tens of thousands of years for the void in the domain of shadow illusion to be filled with all kinds of special abilities again. However, it would also be very thin, with many impurities. It was unknown whether it would be possible to gather them into a brand new domain. Silver sand! Yu Yuan exclaimed softly. Through the mysterious connection between his true form and his nether soul, he sent a message to his true form. He knew that his true form, which was in another part of the void, had already left with the 7 lows and was moving towards his current location. However, since his true form was a fleshly body, he couldn't travel thousands of miles in a breath like his nether soul. It would take a long time for him to arrive. Since his true form hadn't arrived yet, his nether soul observed the domain of silver sand from the border with curiosity. He also wanted to know if there were any powerful beings waiting for him at the border of the domain of silver sand. I wonder if the cauldron's soul and the evil demon cauldron are also in this domain. His nether soul, which was in a pure spirit form, was fine in this void. However, if he entered the domain of silver sand in this form, it would be too risky. What if Wei Zhua, who was in charge of the Thunder Divine Lake, was waiting for him at the border and struck him with lightning? With this thought, he subconsciously shrank back. His true form and the 7 loaves were moving closer to each other. He secretly observed them, keeping a distance from the domain of silver sand. An unknown period of time passed. A towering, miraculous palace appeared at the border of the domain of silver sand, shining with dazzling light. Chao Jiazi. Yu Yuan's heart trembled. With the help of the Empress, he had warned this new Xuantianzong expert about the domain of shadow illusion. He had told him about the domain of shadow illusion and the God of Origin Realm's plan. He had thought that Chao Jiazi would suddenly appear and help him when the full spirit world was going through great changes. However, Chao Jiazi hadn't come. He must have noticed the unfavorable situation and retreated in time. Why would he appear now? Chapter 13:12. Yu Yuan stared at the palace in the domain of silver sand in silence, his own soul retracting his aura. He didn't know who else was in the domain of silver sand other than Chao Jiazi. As Xuantianzong, the first in line to become the next sect master, Xuantianzong had given him all the precious resources he had. He wouldn't want anything to happen to him. If he was here, there would be a lot of experts nearby. The palace made of gold and jade stopped at the edge of the domain, releasing a hazy halo. It didn't seem like it was going to enter the void right away. However, Yu Yuan, who was already on guard, didn't dare to act rashly. He just waited in silence. After an unknown period of time, the palace, which was obviously guarded by Chao Jiazi, slowly flew towards the domain of dark forest in a beam of dim light. This made Yu Yuan treat it with caution. Whoosh! As Chao Jiazi steered the palace into the deathly silence of the void, he was quite nervous and kept an eye out. He was afraid that the unknown will of the God of Origin world would suddenly rush over and drag him into the abyss of depravity, losing him forever. He had been staying at the border between the domain of silver sand and the domain of dark forest. Every once in a while, he would carefully enter, but he didn't dare to go too deep. He was only here to see if there were any major changes in this strange place. What he was doing now was to observe the changes in this void and wait for more experts to arrive. After they gathered, he would go to the land of destruction in the full spirit world to investigate. Then, he encountered Yu Yuan's Yin soul. Yu Yuan! Chao Jiazi was the first to exclaim. He was even more excited and nervous than Yu Yuan. You're still alive? Before Yu Yuan could say anything, he sighed softly and said, even though you only have your Yin soul, it's still a good thing. At least you can return to the land of terror with your Yin soul and cultivate the ghost Tao. With the precedent of the white bones, you still have a chance to be reincarnated. Sigh, it's a pity. It seemed that he hadn't talked for a long time. Now that he had bumped into Yu Yuan's Yin soul, he opened his mouth. From his expression, it seemed that Yu Yuan was lucky enough to still have a wisp of his Yin soul. In his spirit form, Yu Yuan wore a strange face. He didn't hurry to answer. Instead, he paid attention to the palace made of gold and jade and gold. He looked behind the palace to see if anyone else had come out. After a while, he relaxed when he saw Chao Jiazi. Why do you think that my real body? I analyzed it from the information brought back by Wei Zhuo and Su Jingyao. Your real body? Shaking his head, Chao Jiazi had a look of disbelief on his face. You're really lucky. He quickly denied himself. You are the god of misfortune. First, it was the Dark Star Zone. It wasn't peaceful yet. Now, you've made such a terrifying scene in the alien battlefield. Then, Chao Jiazi looked at Yu Yuan as if he was looking at a ferocious ghost. What have you heard? Yu Yuan said helplessly. When Chen Qinghuang was fighting the void spirit, you disappeared into thin air with the dragon beheading platform. Not long after that, Diggs of the Dark Spirit clan seemed to have received the will of the god of the origin world and released the mysterious power from the origin world from the full spirit world. Chao Jiazi said slowly. What he said was from Wei Zhuo and Su Jingyao. It was similar to what Seven Loads had told him. When Wei Zhuo and the others retreated, they thought that Chen Qinghuang would be defeated. That fallen giant tree was unbelievably strong. Its branches pierced through meteorites and absorbed all the scattered power in the alien battlefield. When the full spirit world exploded, the mysterious power from the origin world spread out crazily and turned the alien battlefield into nothingness. He added a few more words. Yu Yuan looked behind him. Why are you in the Silver Sand Star Zone? Not only me, but Wei Zhuo, Su Jingyao, and the experts from Hauran also came to the Silver Sand Star Zone through the mobile galaxy ferry I took there. Chao Jiazi didn't hide anything. He said frankly, Yu Yuan, listen to me. No matter what you plan to do, don't come to the Silver Sand Star Zone. Why? Yu Yuan asked curiously. If you don't want to die. Chao Jiazi rolled his eyes. If you hadn't sent me a message with Chen Qinghuang's power before the chaos, I wouldn't have bothered to talk to you. His expression suddenly turned solemn and incomparably grim. I won't hide it from you. We've taken over the Silver Sand Star Zone. Zhu Huan is dead, Old Fu is dead, and Jin Li of the Goblin Temple is dead. The upheaval in the alien battlefield, the mysterious origin realm, the void spirits, Diggs, who wants to replace Brizette, and so on. Chao Jiazi turned around and glanced at the domain of silver sand behind him. The only reason I'm here is because the sect master of the Black Heaven sect has graced us with his presence. As soon as he said that, Yu Yuan's Yin deity shuddered. The sect master of Xuantianzong, a veteran primordial spirit realm cultivator and a supreme expert who had lived for countless years, had moved to the Silver Sand Star Zone because of the upheaval in the Yulin Star Zone. No wonder it wasn't hard to imagine that other than Xuantianzong, there must be more experts from Hauran coming here. They must be trying to figure out what had happened in this desolate land of nothingness. They hadn't moved yet, probably because they didn't have enough people. Maybe they were waiting for other primordial spirit realm cultivators to arrive. Yen Qiling, my evil demon cauldron, and Yuan Lianyao, what's the situation now? Yu Yuan yelled. Yuan Lianyao is from the Red Devil School. What could have happened to her? Zhang Guanyu from the Red Devil School is also here. She and Fang Yao are both alive. A frigid snow bear is said to have snuck into the Firefly Star Zone. Yan Qiling and your cauldron traveled through space several times before our sect master arrived. They're nowhere to be found. Pei Yuling betrayed Howren. We don't have anyone who's proficient in the power of space, so we could only watch Yan Qiling escape. Chao Jiaza explained. Yu Yuan was slightly relieved. He knew that Baylor of the Star Race could come at any time from the Shadow Illusion Star Zone. There were 2 Level 9 Azuras in the Firefly Star Zone and Chen Qinghuang in the Darkwing Star Zone. Therefore, Chao Jiaza, who was in charge of the mobile Galaxy Ferry, chose the Silver Sand Star Zone. As soon as the Galaxy Ferry resumed operation, Howren immediately learned what had happened. Everyone was shocked. The experts arrived. What happened? Chao Jiaza asked with a grim expression. Let's not talk about our confrontation with the Shunhun sect for now. Where did you go after you disappeared? Is Chen Qinghuang dead or alive? And the Void Spirit, is the fallen divine tree still inside? The experts who arrived in the Silver Sand Star Zone would finally explore the Dark Forest Star Zone carefully. Chao Jiaza, of course, wanted to get more information from Yu Yuan so that he could prepare for the future. He was afraid that when the experts of Howren gathered and entered the depths of the void, they would be subjected to unfathomable power and meet a tragic end. If the god of the Origin Realm invited other experts or the Shunhun sect to participate, the consequences would be unpredictable. It's like this, Yu Yuan summarized his experience. He said that he was pulled to a strange place by the god of the Origin Realm's will, and then escaped through the dragon beheading platform. He only briefly described the wondrous scene in that place. He told Chao Jiaza that the god of the Origin Realm's plan against the Dark Forest Star Zone had succeeded. Diggs had obtained eternal life and was about to enter rank 10 bloodline. The legendary Ruo Dao tree had completely grown after its fall. However, these outsiders who believed in the god of the Origin Realm had disappeared from the Dark Forest Star Zone. Of course, they would do something new, but they probably wouldn't choose the Dark Forest Star Zone. He also said that the god of the Origin Realm's power and will could descend through any Origin World portal, and told Chao Jiaza to be careful. After all, there were Origin World portals in other parts of Howren. It took Chao Jiaza a long time to digest his words. Chao Jiaza, who remained silent, as if he wanted to think over every word he said, frowned deeply. Only after a long time did he speak again. Let's pretend that we never met here. After all, we're on different sides. It's good for both of us to pretend that we never met. The information you brought me is of great importance. I need to understand it. You can go to the domain of illusion, the domain of Firefly, or the domain of Darkwing. Anyway, don't come to the domain of Silver Sand. You won't be able to go back if you do. Chao Jiaza warned seriously. The origin of the Silver Scales bloodline is the Abyss Lizard. It's said that the Abyss Lizard is the only giant beast that can touch the Abyss. Since you've taken over Silver Sand, why don't you start looking for information about the Abyss from there? Yu Yuan gave her own suggestion. She also felt that the mysterious god of the Origin Realm would become a public enemy. A better understanding of the Origin Realm and the Abyss would help them deal with this new evil force in the future. Alright, take care. I hope we'll meet again. Chao Jiaza clasped his hands towards him and then stepped back. If you hadn't joined the Shunhun sect, we might have become best friends, just like you and Zuan. Yu Yuan, you're a tough guy and I like you. Before Chao Jiaza disappeared, he confided in a slightly regretful tone. A trace of confusion appeared in his heart, but since the experts of the Primal Yang sect and the Sword sect were present, he didn't ask any questions. Little Chow, you didn't discover anything inside, did you? Yu Mu chuckled and glanced over. Why didn't you remind me of this before? The great change in Dark Forest Star area is very important. If you find something, don't hide it. I just suddenly thought of it. Senior Yu, you're thinking too much. Chow Jiazi smiled. I really want to know what's going on in there, Yu Mu blurted out without rhyme or reason. Many people turned to look at the illusory Dark Forest domain. They were curious and worried at the same time. The sudden outbreak of chaos in this fragmented starry river, which had been the alien battlefield for thousands of years, startled all forces in the starry river and stopped the war in the Dark Forest Star area. Because of the deaths of King Wei Ling and ancient god Golden Elephant, the Goblin Temple and the Devil's Palace were furious. They gathered the forces of all the sects in Howren and swarmed into the Dark Forest Star area. The three high sects also cooperated with them. Experts of the three high sects gathered. The result was that the entire heavenly devil race was enraged by Howren's aggressive invasion. The great devil god Bertuns, who didn't see eye to eye with Grek, made his attitude clear. Therefore, led by High Priest Reed, many bloodline experts of the bright light race, the Banshees, and the Star race also went. On the other side of the Goblin Temple and the Devil's Palace, the demon god Qilin showed up and started a great war in the Dark Forest Star area. While the war was in full swing, everyone heard that a great earthquake had occurred in the Dark Forest Star area. The mysterious god of Origin World showed his power. The Void Spirit and the Dark Spirit race's ancestral tree almost killed Brizette. The immortal bird from 100,000 years ago was also involved. Soon, the Dark Forest Star area turned into nothingness. The meteors in the sky exploded into dust. The starry river didn't have a trace of energy left. The war in the Dark Forest Star area stopped because of this great change, the unknown god of Origin World, and the nothingness of this star area. Then, news of Jean Li's death, Zhu Huan's death, and the deep-sea giant winged lizard's death came out one after another. It attracted everyone's attention. What followed next was the shift of the experts. Don't be hasty. Let's wait for a while. We'll explore the mysteries inside together. Du Yuan, who was known as the Sword of Destruction, looked at the moving Star River ferry and said calmly, "My sex people will be here soon." Brizette of the Dark Spirit race was extraordinary, but she ended up like that. We have to be careful. Yu Mu sighed. Of course I know. Behind the two of them, the beautiful Chen Qinyan lowered her head with a worried frown. She was in a complicated mood. Her master was fighting in the Dark Forest Star area. He should arrive soon. She had been picked up by Yu Mu after condensing her son's spirit. She had wanted to see the wonders of the alien battlefield, but she didn't expect that she would encounter such a great change as soon as she arrived in the outer space. In an extremely short amount of time, a galaxy actually turned into nothingness. Among the participants there was Yu Yuan, the founder of the Azure Luan Empire, the one the Chun family once worshipped as a god. She also wanted to know what had happened inside, and whether Yu Yuan and that person were still alive. Yu Yuan didn't know that he had missed many of his old acquaintances. But he knew that since the head of the Xuantianzong sect had come to the Silver Sand Star area in person, if he still went there recklessly, it would be his own fault. With that person there, it would be difficult for his acquaintances to go easy on him. Since his true form and his Een spirit could communicate without any hindrance, his true form and the 7 evils of strange demons stopped moving towards the Silver Sand Star area the moment he met Chow Jiazi. Drag Illusion, Dark Wing, and Flying Ing, Yu Yuan thought to himself. Since he couldn't go to the Silver Sand Star area, he could only start from the other 3 star areas nearby. The Dark Wing Star area was his best choice because Chen Qinghuang had gone there. However, the Empress had made it clear that she didn't want him to go with her. The Drag Illusion Star area was where he had come from. After the floating life realm disappeared, it was no longer attractive to him. The domain of Flying Firefly was the Azura's territory, which had been ruled by Fernan. Elena should be there now, and there should be 2 9th-grade Azura warriors there. And that frigid snow bear, for some reason, when he thought of that frigid snow bear, which was full of intelligence, he suddenly made up his mind. As soon as he made up his mind, his true form reacted and changed directions. With his Een spirit leading the way, they traveled thousands of miles in a flash. After a long time, his Een spirit once again arrived at the border between the domain of Dark Forest and the domain of Flying Firefly. There was a natural boundary between the two domains, as if there was an invisible membrane separating them. Not a single wisp of the domain of Flying Firefly or the domain of Flying Firefly flew over. Even the void of the domain of Dark Forest was blocked. His Een divinity stood in the void, silently observing the distance. There was nothing unusual without the protection of a physical body. His Een spirit didn't dare to take any drastic actions. He didn't dare to try to infiltrate the area with his soul awareness, fearing that some powerful being would take the opportunity to attack him. Therefore, he could only wait quietly. After an unknown period of time, his true form and the 7 loaches of Mantis finally arrived at his Een spirit's location. Whoosh! A moment later, his Een spirit returned to the small world in his sea of consciousness. His body trembled slightly. Due to the return of his Een spirit, he felt that his intelligence had improved. His perception, observation, and the refinement of his soul seemed to have improved in all aspects. Before his Een spirit left his body, he was considered a Soul Wander Realm expert. The key to the Soul Wander Realm was to let his soul travel outside his body. 4 cultivators at the same level as him in Howran, being able to travel thousands of miles with their soul, was already an incredible achievement. However, this time, he had traveled thousands of miles in a breath's time in this void, and he had traveled for a very long time. It could be said that he had traveled through the entire void. Although he hadn't discovered anything special, his Een spirit's soul travel was thousands of times faster than other Soul Wander Realm experts, whether it was in terms of time or distance. In addition, during this process, he had cleansed his soul with Een sunflower essence. It seems to be urging me to break through and complete my Een spirit as soon as possible. After carefully sensing it, the corners of Yu Yuan's mouth curled up slightly. He knew that his foundation in the Soul Wander Realm had been strengthened to the extreme. It was as if his current state of mind and tempering had far surpassed his current cultivation base. The Soul Wander Realm seemed to be too weak, and it seemed to have restricted him, preventing him from fully displaying the power of his mind and soul. He suddenly realized that even though he hadn't obtained the fruit of the fallen divine tree in the domain of fragmented stars, he had gained something else. Although this gain couldn't be seen with the naked eye, the benefits it would bring him in the future would be gradually manifested. Are you ready? He glanced at the 7 loaches of Mantis. What's there to prepare? The liquefied 7 loaches of Mantis had suffered a lot. Its sharpness seemed to have been tempered, and it had become much steadier. As long as I don't encounter anyone who cultivates lightning incantations, I have nothing to fear. All right. Yu Yuan didn't say anything else. His soul and body had merged into one. He summoned the dragon beheading platform with one hand and held Gendo with the other. The reason why he didn't take out the scabbard of the heaven-raising sword was because he was worried that there might be high-tier experts in the depths of the domain of fragmented stars that could sense it. After all, the heaven-raising sword was very special to the Azuras. Let's go. With the dragon beheading platform in one hand and Gendo in the other, he suddenly shot towards the domain of fragmented stars. Without any obstruction, he flashed through the air. The 7 loaches of Mantis followed closely behind. They also crossed the invisible boundary with ease. In the strange border of the domain of fragmented stars, the first thing that entered Yu Yuan's eyes was the mountain-like frigid snow bear. The frigid snow bear seemed to have been waiting for him for a long time. It gave him a silly smile, not surprised at all. The second thing that entered his eyes was Qiao Yuling from the Thunder Tao sect and Qi Yunhong, who was flabbergasted. "Young Master Yu, you're still alive?" Chapter 13-14. You're still alive? Qi Yunhong's face was filled with astonishment as he stared at Yu Yuan, who had appeared out of thin air. Then, a joyful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and it rippled out bit by bit. He laughed louder and louder, thumping his chest and stamping his feet. "I knew it would be like this." As he spoke, Qi Yunhong shot a smug glance at Qiao Yuling. The old woman, who had lost her front teeth, let out a cold harumph. "Then why are you still pretending to be surprised? It's one thing if you guessed that he was alive, but how did you know he would show up here?" "Because of this." Qi Yunhong pointed at the white bear that looked like a towering snowy mountain peak. It squeaked and described so many things in such detail. "Can't you tell?" Qiao Yuling shook her head. "Who knows what it said?" Immediately afterwards, tiny bolts of crimson lightning suddenly appeared in the depths of her gruesome eyes as she glanced at the liquefied Seven Loathsome. Upon seeing her, Seven Loathsome looked as if it had seen an evil ghost, and had long since shrunk behind Yu Yuan. Yu Yuan, who had crossed the invisible boundary from the illusory domain of dark forest to the domain of firefly, was confused by the conversation between Qi Yunhong and the old woman. "You knew I would come?" Yu Yuan asked curiously. The 9th-grade frigid snow bear suddenly shook its head to attract his attention. Yu Yuan turned to look at him. The figures of Yuan Lianyao and Fang Yao gradually appeared in the depths of the enormous snow bear's eyes. The two of them from the Red Devil School were taken away from the sky by Zhang Guanyu, who was at the Freedom Realm, and then gradually disappeared from the snow bear's eyes. The snow that filled the sky clearly came from the frigid snow bear's power. Combined with Chao Jia's words, Yu Yuan realized that the scene in its eyes must have taken place in the domain of silver sand. After handing Fang Yao and Yuan Lianyao to Zhang Guanyu, it left the domain of silver sand. Then, it came to the domain of firefly. "Well done." Yu Yuan nodded in satisfaction. He did not know how to thank it, nor did he know what this snow bear wanted from him. The frigid snow bear, who had been praised, chuckled foolishly, looking very satisfied. Yu Yuan looked at Qi Yunhong again. "We've met it, and we've also seen Yuan Lianyao and Fang Yao. We also learned that the powerful experts from Hauran will soon arrive in the domain of silver sand. We had no choice but to flee to the Firefly Star Zone like this snow bear. During this process, this snow bear was very opinionated and insisted on coming to the border." Qi Yunhong seemed to be in deep thought as he explained to Yu Yuan, "After hearing about its miraculous abilities and how it fawned on you, I felt that it was waiting for you. There's no detailed logic to it, and I didn't really think about it. It's just pure intuition." Yu Yuan was surprised. After pondering for a while, he looked at Qiao Yuling and said, "Why are you involved?" Qiao Yuling was the leader of the Thunder Mackerel sect in outer space. This group of cultivators had always been free and unrestrained. They had never obeyed the orders of the 5 major forces in Hauran. Although they were from Hauran, they had established their own sect and became an evil sect. Qi Yunhong had followed the snow bear here out of nostalgia or curiosity. Qiao Yuling had no reason to let him. "I'm not following it. It's too dangerous in the domain of Firefly, and I don't have anywhere to go." Qiao Yuling's face was grim. "I've sensed the aura of the Xian Wang Dao flag in the domain of silver sand. Since Han Shuyuan has shown up, I can only avoid it. Wei Zhuo is not a kind person. I'm afraid that he will use Han Shuyuan's power to kill me and my disciple in the domain of silver sand." Han Shuyuan was the current sect master of Xuantianzong. The Xian Huang Dao flag was a divine artifact that had been famous in Haoran for tens of thousands of years. Before Qiao Yuling left the Thunder Mackerel sect, she was Wei Zhuo's senior. In the early years, when Wei Zhuo saw her, he would pay his respects meticulously. But now, he wanted to kill her whenever he had the chance. However, Wei Zhuo, Chao Jiazi, and the others were in the domain of silver sand, so Qiao Yuling was not afraid. However, as soon as she sensed the aura of the Xian Huang Dao flag and knew that Han Shuyuan was on his way, she immediately pulled Qi Yunhong out of the domain of silver sand without saying a word. The domain of Firefly is so big. Why do you have to follow it? Yu Yuan asked again. At this time, Qiao Yuling looked at the frigid snow bear with a strange expression. Then, she said with a bit of embarrassment, Alonso is coming. He's in the domain of Firefly right now. The strange thing is, that guy seems to know this snow bear and opens the door to it. Wherever it is, Alonso won't go near it. Alonso? The commander of the Azura race? Yu Yuan was shocked. Some of the first-rank races in the Outer Realms had more than one rank 10 bloodline expert. In the Sky Demon race, there were 3 great demon gods, Bertuns, Grek, and Reed. The Azura race's combat strength was second only to the Sky Demons. Other than the Shura of Gojoseon and Sabonis, the commander Alonso also had a rank 10 bloodline. After Sabonis was ambushed and seriously injured in Thousand Bird Realm, he stayed in Dark Realm to recover. Most of the matters in the outside world were temporarily decided by the commander Alonso. He must have heard about the Dark Forest Star Region's transformation, the formation of the fallen divine tree, and the spread of the will of the god of the Origin Realm. That was why the commander of the Azura race had hurried over. Who else could it be other than him? Qiao Yuling rolled her eyes and said helplessly, Han Kuiyuan is in Silver Sand, and Alonso is here. The Yulin Star Zone, which we could have taken a detour to, has become a forbidden area. No one knows if the mysterious god of Origin Realm is still there, so no one dares to enter it. That's all we can do. It was obvious that she was very troubled and frustrated. But because of the sudden change, she was temporarily trapped. Because of you, the commander of the Azura race didn't approach. Yu Yuan rubbed his chin, a strange light flashing in his eyes as he stared at the frigid snow bear, wondering in his heart, where did this fellow come from? Firefly Star Region, he murmured. With his soul thought and perception, he could clearly feel that the universe's power here was much denser than the cold power of other places. This place was even colder than Dark Forest Star Region, where the sun and moon had exploded. He suddenly had a feeling that cultivators of the Haoran Frigid Darkness sect, or frigid heavenly devils like Consort Han and more would like this place very much. With this thought, he gathered soul power and spiritual power into his eyes and focused on the distance. He didn't see any signs of a sun. There was only a waning moon hanging in the distant starry sky. Many stars that represented realms seemed to be enveloped in cold mist, and he couldn't see them clearly. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to a spacious area that didn't have any stars in the vicinity. Streams of light that looked rather thin from afar intersected with each other, or existed by themselves. They seemed to be still in the coldest place in his perception. With a soft exclamation, he gathered all of his power and focused on that place. He even secretly borrowed some of the space-time dragon's power from the dragon beheading platform. The distance between them seemed to be suddenly shortened. In an instant, he seemed to be able to get close to that extremely cold place and see the whole picture. From afar, it looked like a thin stream of light, but upon closer inspection, it turned into a wide river of light. With a cursory glance, he calculated that there were nearly 100 rivers of light. Some of them intersected with each other, while others were scattered randomly. All of them were still in the starry sky. However, the surging cold power didn't come from the rivers of light. On the contrary, the cold power seemed to be preventing other things from approaching the rivers of light. Even Yu Yuan's line of sight through the dragon beheading platform was blocked by the cold power, making it impossible for him to see the vast rivers of light more directly. However, for some reason, as soon as he saw the rivers of light, he suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. "What are those glowing rivers of light that look like fireflies?" Yu Yuan asked. "I don't know. It's said that they're a wonder of the domain of fireflies. The reason why this place is named Fireflies seems to have something to do with those glowing rivers of light." The one who answered him was Qiao Yuling of the Thunder Slaughter sect. This old woman, who had come to the domain of fireflies more than once to help her disciples refine their thunder incantations, had obviously heard of the domain of fireflies. Well, those fireflies existed before Fernan took over the domain of fireflies. Shura of Gojoseon Sabonis seems to have issued an order that the Shura race of the domain of fireflies are not allowed to approach those rivers of light. Fernan, who had become a bandit, had died in the thousand-bird realm. Qiao Yuling was one of the witnesses. She also knew that the reason Fernan was able to enter the thousand-bird realm was because of Yu Yuan. Because she knew that Yu Yuan and Elena had a deep relationship, she was hesitant to speak. After she finished speaking, Yu Yuan was slightly disappointed. He felt that she had wasted her breath. Qiao Yuling, who often appeared in the alien battlefield and was familiar with the silver sand, dark wing, shadow illusion, and fireflies nearby, could not provide any useful information. Therefore, Yu Yuan had to ask the frigid snow bear for help. "Do you know?" He had a feeling that this level 9 frigid snow bear had entered the domain of fireflies from the domain of fireflies. The domain of fireflies was full of cold chi, which was suitable for this snow bear no matter how one looked at it. Also, even Alonso, the chief commander of the Shura race, was very friendly to this guy, which was even more telling. The frigid snow bear giggled and suddenly waved its thick arms. Its two giant arms were like two frost dragons, shaking in the void in front of Yu Yuan. Then, it swung one of its arms and smashed its other arm. When the arms collided, snowflakes and icy light sputtered all over the sky, as if there was a hailstorm in the void. As it moved, Yu Yuan keenly sensed that the vast cold energy in the domain of fireflies suddenly poured into its body and flowed into its bloodline, triggering many bloodline crystal chains. Crackle! Many icy lightning bolts flew out of its arm bones, as if it was trying to express something to Yu Yuan. Yu Yuan was flabbergasted as she stared at the icy bolts of lightning, and then fell silent for a long time. "Boy, do you need to be in a daze for so long?" After a long time, seeing that he was still silent and deep in thought, Qiao Yuling could not help but snort. Yu Yuan licked the corner of his mouth, and his expression became as strange as it could be. "I think I know what those light rivers are." "What?" the master and disciple of the Thunder Slaughter sect asked in unison. Nie Qin Tian, when he was fighting someone here years ago, wielded that divine sword, drew sword beams and tore apart the river of stars, and the remaining power didn't dissipate, so it stayed here. His voice was hoarse and his face was full of disbelief. Even he could not believe it. Qi Yunhong suddenly jumped up and said, "How is that possible? How many years has it been? How can those sword beams not dissipate?" Just like Yu Yuan, he couldn't believe it and couldn't imagine it. "I see." Qiao Yuling took a deep breath, her expression complicated. She believed it immediately. Chapter 13-15. Yu Yuan, who said those words, was also deeply shocked. Even his breathing seemed to have stopped. The frigid snow bear smashed one arm into the other to tell him the wonders contained in the arm. The shocking sword art of 9 slashes to the sky was engraved in his arm bones, and it had never been erased. When the snow bear's arms collided, the icy light and cold lightning sputtered out like unparalleled sword rainbows. He pondered for a moment and understood what the snow bear was hinting at. Therefore, he also guessed the truth. After thousands of years, the peerless sword immortal of the sword sect, who had the greatest killing power, swung his sword in this part of the universe, and the sword aura he left behind didn't disappear. Not only did it not disappear, but it also evolved into brilliant rivers of light like fireflies. How could he not be shocked? From afar, the rivers of light looked slender, but not only were they wide, but they were also extremely long. They were actually sword auras. Yu Yuan couldn't help but think of the magnificent scene of a moon-severing realm cultivator swinging his sword here. The majestic figure that could swallow mountains and rivers appeared in his mind. Then, he felt a sense of respect. The sword auras were slender enough to be seen from so far away. One of them was probably thousands of kilometers long and could pierce through a star realm. Moreover, there were nearly 100 of them. Yu Yuan's eyes suddenly lit up. You believe this? Qi Yunhong, who had the title of madman, was very respectful to Yu Yuan, but he still didn't want to believe it. He thought that Xiao Yuling, who took him to practice burning soul lightning, was probably crazy. Only a lunatic would believe that the brilliant rivers of light were sword auras left behind thousands of years ago. You know nothing about the true way of the sword. The leader of the Thunder Slaughter sect in the outer realm of the universe looked at him disdainfully as if he were an idiot and said, I only gradually heard the rumors about Nye Qintian after I left the Howran Thunder Slaughter sect and followed the seniors to practice the brand new thunder arts. He, who is in the nascent soul realm and has comprehended 9 slashes to the sky, can cut the moon and shatter the stars with 1 slash. His sword aura can cut through the universe. As long as it doesn't dissipate, it will exist forever. Moreover, it will automatically absorb the spiritual energy in the starry sky and be refined by the sword intent before it is integrated into the sword light. Just like those, with a respectful expression, Xiao Yuling pointed at the seemingly thin rivers of light in the distant starry river. At first, they were probably only a few finger-thick sword lights. However, the sword auras continued to gather the spiritual energy in the starry sky. After thousands of years, they evolved into rivers of light that looked like fireflies. She couldn't stop praising Nye Qintian. As expected of Nye Qintian, the person with the greatest killing power in the history of the sword sect. After giving her such a detailed explanation, Qi Yunhong finally believed it a little. A sword light, after its master died, can still collect the power of the starry sky by itself? As long as the sword intent exists, the sword light will never die, Xiao Yuling shouted softly with a solemn expression. He does have such an ability. Hiding behind Yu Yuan, the liquefied 7 evils of alien demon suddenly said in a weak voice. Yu Yuan turned his head to look at him and motioned for him to show himself. It's all right. Since I'm here, Senior Qiao won't do anything to you. This thing is recorded in detail in the secret ancient records of our lightning sect. Xiao Yuling casually rubbed her messy hair, her eyes shining with red light. If I remember correctly, he can devour people's inner demons. He was imprisoned before and offered to the deranged cultivators in the Devil's Palace to get rid of their inner demons. Some of the old bastards in the 3 great sects would also let him deal with their inner demons when they were cornered. Yu Yuan nodded. Forget it. I've long since left Howran's lightning element sect. I'm not obligated to clean up their dirty things. Xiao Yuling waved her hand and took the initiative to distance herself from 7 evils of alien demon with a disgusted expression. What do you want to say? Yu Yuan asked. I can't see the river of sword light clearly because it's too far away, 7 evils of alien demon said hurriedly. But I know that if that person's sword aura stays in the void and isn't destroyed or scattered by an expert of the same level, it can really gather the spirit energy in the universe on its own and continuously refine the sword aura. It will really grow stronger and stronger, 7 Loaves said quickly. He also realized that his value wasn't high right now, and he needed to show his worth. What I'm curious about is why this river of sword light wasn't destroyed when it was left in the domain of Firefly, Qi Yunhong said with narrowed eyes. Don't the Azuras have any powerful experts? I heard that Sabonis and that thing have clashed several times, both openly and secretly. Isn't that divine sword also suppressed in the Dark Realm? Shura of Gojoseon knows that sword light is here, but instead of destroying it, he's allowing it to grow stronger and stronger. What is he thinking? Qi Yunhong raised his doubts. Yu Yuan and Xiao Yuling, however, frowned and fell silent after hearing this. They couldn't understand why this river of sword light could still exist in this starry river after thousands of years. Not only did it exist, but it was also surrounded by fierce cold energy that prevented the Azuras from approaching it. Didn't the experts of the Howran sword sect come to the domain of Firefly? Didn't they see that the core of the River of Light was actually a bunch of extremely pure sword light? Firefly was adjacent to the famous alien battlefield. Cultivators of the sword sect often came here to train. It didn't make sense that a cultivator of the sword sect had never entered the domain of Firefly. Yu Yuan had too many questions in his mind. He thought to himself, wondering if he should take the risk and study it at a close distance. There were sword marks on his arm bone, and he had the scabbard in his hand. He believed that the river of sword light left by that thing wouldn't be hostile to him. He might even gain something from it. The problem was that Alonso, the chief commander of the Azuras, was currently in the domain of Firefly. If he wasn't mistaken, the two level 9 Azura warriors he met in the Illusion Star Zone were also in the domain of Firefly. This was what he was worried about. Bang! Bang! The enormous frigid snow bear suddenly patted its own shoulder with its white, furry paw. That was where Yu Yuan had stopped on the evil demon cauldron. The snow bear's intention was to let Yu Yuan come up and lead the way to a certain place. After hesitating for a while, Yu Yuan gritted his teeth and obeyed. He flew up with a whoosh and landed on the snow bear's broad shoulder. Without the support of the evil demon cauldron, he looked very inconspicuous on the frigid snow bear's furry shoulder. Compared to the 2,000-meter-tall giant bear, he was truly too small. If he could restrain his aura, perhaps when he brushed past the Shura race warriors, they wouldn't even notice that he was standing in the thick fur on the snow bear's shoulder. He landed on the bear's shoulder again. Without the evil demon cauldron's obstruction, he could feel the cold energy emanating from the frigid snow bear's body from time to time. That aura was actually quite similar to the cold energy that surrounded the many long rivers of sword light and the rivers of light. No way! This shock was no small matter. He looked at the side of the snow bear's face with a strange expression. What he was thinking was, could it be that this frigid snow bear had been using its bloodline power to gather cold energy from the Firefly star domain and isolate the dazzling rivers of sword light for thousands of years? Could it be that the cold energy it released prevented the Azura clansmen from coming into contact with the sword lights and allowed them to grow stronger? Hee. The frigid snow bear laughed foolishly. It didn't seem to know what Qin Lai was thinking, and turned around to take him away. The direction it was heading was where the river of sword light was. Wait! Yu Yuan hurriedly stopped it. Then he turned around and said to the dazed and bewildered master and disciple, "The dark forest star domain is temporarily safe. The void spirit, the fallen god Tree, Diggs, and Pei Yuling have all retreated. The dark forest star domain is of no value to the mysterious god of the origin realm. Chen Qinghuang, Brizette, and that gray goose have gone to the winged race's star domain. The Silver Sand star domain is waiting for more experts to arrive before they explore the dark forest star domain. If you don't want to stay in the Firefly star domain, you can pass through the dark forest star domain and go to the illusionary star domain or the Darkwing star domain. But remember to be quick. If you're late, you may run into Han Guiyuan's group." He had said similar words many times. He was very familiar with them. While Xiao Yuling and her master were still digesting his words, the frigid snow bear took him and roared through the icy river of stars. They were heading straight for the river of sword light. "I think he's gone mad." The old woman with missing front teeth looked at Yu Yuan and the frigid snow bear leaving together in the direction of the mysterious forbidden zone of the Firefly Star domain. She shook her head and said, "I know that he can absorb power from the river of sword light, but so what? Alonso and many high-rank Azura experts are there. Does he think he's Han Guiyuan? Master, should we go and take a look?" Qi Yunhong rubbed his fists, his face full of curiosity and eagerness. "You'd better give up on that idea." Xiao Yuling glared at him coldly and said fiercely, "Brat, if you don't want to die, if you don't want me to die with you, then stay away from that guy. We'll be safe only if you stay as far away from him as possible. Think about it. What happened to Thousand Bird Realm when he showed up? Wasn't he the fuse for the war that engulfed all races and forces in the Dark Star domain? Not long ago it was Yelwan. Now it's Dark Forest Star domain. I've learned a lot about him." Looking at the distant stars shrouded in cold mist, Xiao Yuling's lips curled into a chilling smile. "Heh, he's now in the Azura race's star domain. I'm worried for the Azura clansmen here." Xiao Yuling couldn't help but laugh strangely. "Ahem, master, you seem to have a big prejudice against him." Qi Yunhong laughed dryly. "Prejudice? It's a fact that happens time and time again like an iron law." Xiao Yuling snorted coldly again. "I'd rather take the risk in the illusory Dark Forest Star domain than stay in the Firefly Star domain with him. Just wait and see. I think it won't be long before some shocking news spreads from the Firefly Star domain." Then, she grabbed Qi Yunhong's arm with a hand that looked like a chicken claw and dragged him away. They entered the illusory Dark Forest Star domain in an instant. Chapter 13-16. At the border of the domain of Silver Sand. Above the scallop-shaped meteorite, the Milky Way fairy suddenly emitted a gentle halo. Turbulent spatial fluctuations spread out, indicating the arrival of another expert. Lin Yen was already used to it. With a calm face, he took a few steps back. Recently, more than a dozen human grand cultivators had arrived from different parts of the Milky Way. He had long been numb to it. Swoosh! A slender figure with sparkling starlight coming out of her swaying sleeves suddenly came into everyone's sight. The newcomer was a woman who seemed to be surrounded by thousands of slender sword lights, which were so dazzling that it hurt people's eyes. A dazzling starry river appeared behind her. The stars were like frost crystals. Even the tiniest crystal had wisps of sharp sword intent flowing in it. The moment everyone looked at her, they couldn't see her face. They could only see countless starlight-cold crystals. A chill rose from the depths of everyone's hearts and souls. Ning Shuang, Du Yuan, who was on the sword sect's side, was shocked when he saw her. This great sword immortal of the older generation had a gratified look on his face. The moment she arrived, Du Yuan knew that her attainment in the sword Dao had improved a bit. Apparently, the war in the Dark Star domain had helped her refine her Starlight Frost sword. Heavenly Water Sword, Yumu swept away his previous laziness and slowly sat up from his reclining position. Then, he smiled brightly at her. "Senior Martial Sister, it seems that you've gained a lot in the Dark Star domain." "Master," Chen Qinyan greeted with a joyful face. "Greetings, Goddess Ji. Great Sword Immortal Ji, long time no see. You're still as graceful as ever. Look at the sword lights on you. They carry the Blood Demon's aura. Did you just go through a bloody battle?" Wei Zhua, Mo Baichuan, Chao Jiaza, and the others all stood up to greet her after she appeared. Jining Shuang, who exuded a dense sword qi, was dressed in white. She withdrew the overflowing sword intent and nodded gently at the people who greeted her. Then, she flew to the peak of the sword sect. When Du Yuan and Yu Mu saw her coming over, they took the initiative to make space for her. Uncle Master Ji. The disciples of the sword sect next to him were all at the Yang spirit realm. At this moment, they were shouting in admiration. After landing on the mountain, Ji Ningxuang, who had the title of Sword of Starfrost, had a slightly gentler expression on her face. She looked at Chen Qinyan, who had refined the yang spirit, with a doting and gratified look in her eyes. It's faster than I expected. Everyone's breakthroughs are speeding up. I'm not the only one, Chen Qinyan said with a humble smile. Because a lot of useless people have died recently, Ji Ningxuang said with a slight frown. The vast amount of karmic luck they possessed was returned to heaven and earth. She didn't hold back at all when she spoke of this secret. They should have reshuffled the cards a long time ago. A large number of people should have died. Clearly, their path forward has been cut off, and they have no hope of making any progress in their lives. They are also eroded by their inner demons. Those who choose to hide in Howren instead of fighting to the death with the foreign experts are not worthy of embarking on the path of cultivation. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of many people present became unnatural. Wei Zhua, Mo Baichuan, and even Du Yuan, who had the title of Sword of Destruction, looked a little embarrassed. In their sects, and even among their subordinates, there were also those people that Ji Ningxuang had mentioned. Limited by their aptitude and comprehension, many people's path of cultivation had actually come to an end. Those people did not fight in the foreign galaxies, nor did they fight the foreign warriors. They hid in Howren all day long. They were the useless thieves who had forcibly occupied the Howren fortune in her words. The return of the Shunhun sect and its recent actions had forced those old fellows, whose realms were not high, to rush to the outer space bitterly. In the dark star domain, many of such old fellows had died. In Ji Ningxuang's eyes, they should have died long ago, because their survival was of no benefit to the prosperity of Howren. They might as well die so that the new generation of Howren could grow faster, break through their realms, and rush to the starry sky one after another to compete with the foreign experts. Boy Chow, tell me about the situation. Seeing that many people were either silent or smiling awkwardly, she turned her eyes and fixed them on Chao Jiazi like a beam of sword light. With a chuckle, Chao Jiazi told her what had happened recently, neither haughty nor humble. She listened carefully. After a while, she suddenly said, "That snow bear went to the Firefly Star Domain. Why didn't you chase after it? Wei Zhua, don't you want Xiao Yuling to die?" "Because that's the Firefly Star Domain, one of the forbidden areas in outer space," Chao Jiazi said softly. "Firefly." Ji Ningxuang frowned and muttered to herself. Then, as if she had thought of something, she looked at Du Yuan in confusion and said, "I remember now. The three high sects have listed the Firefly Star Domain as a forbidden area, forbidding the Howren experts and powerful demons from the Qilin Star Domain to hunt there. Why?" Du Yuan was older than her, so she thought he knew the details. Chao Jiazi, Wei Zhua, and Mo Baichuan also looked at her attentively. They all knew that the three high sects had listed the Firefly Star Domain as a forbidden area in outer space, forbidding the Howren experts and powerful demons from exploring it. However, they didn't know the specific reasons. There must be a reason why it's listed as a forbidden area. Only the sect masters of the three high sects have listed it as a forbidden area. Du Yuan bowed his head and said calmly, "I do know the reason, but I can't tell you." Ji Ningxuang raised her eyebrows. "Even I can't know?" "You can ask the sect master next time," Du Yuan said plainly. Ji Ningxuang didn't say anything. After a short moment, she took a light breath, and then without saying a word, she transformed into a ray of sword light that instantly vanished into the void of dark forest stellar region. Du Yuan paled. Yu Mu smiled bitterly and sighed helplessly. Chen Qinyan called out, "Master," but he didn't hear any response. He didn't see the sword light turn around either. "She's too rash." Wei Zhua shook his head and said, "I've seen the power of the void spirits and the progenitor tree in the full spirit world before it exploded. I saw Brizette's realm drop with my own eyes. If those experts were here, she wouldn't have been able to escape unscathed. She's a good person. Don't worry, Chao Jiazi said with a relaxed face. Through Yu Yuan, he had learned that the experts in the Qilin star domain had all retreated. No existence that could threaten Jining Shuang was still there. He didn't ask them to explore the Qilin star domain and wait, because he couldn't say anything. Now, Jining Shuang didn't have the patience to wait for more experts. If she went in alone, she would be able to bring back the truth faster. A star shrouded in cold mist was right in front of them. Whoosh! A cold current that was as thick as water flowed out of the star where the Azura race lived. It seemed to be attracted by the frigid realm's snow bear and gathered towards it. The giant bear, which looked like a towering snow mountain, blinked innocently and hurriedly dodged. Yu Yuan, who was standing on its shoulder, stared at the thick, frigid mist with suspicion in her heart. The frigid mist that surrounded the stars and the natural realm barrier that protected the stars were one with each other. It had isolated the star power of many harmful beings, allowing the weak Azura clansmen to live a peaceful life in it. It prevented them from being tainted and turned into mutant monsters at a young age. When the snow bear approached, the cold mist that had merged with the realm barrier would move closer to it and merge with it. However, it didn't seem to be doing it on its own accord. Apparently, it didn't want to take the thick cold power and damage the realm barrier around the star, so that the tainted power in the starry river would flow into it through the realm barrier. What it did was actually to protect the weak Azuras that lived inside it. Yu Yuan clicked his tongue in amazement. During the past few days, he had been standing on the frigid realm snow bear's shoulder and following it as it flew across the domain of Firefly. The giant bear's target was always the river of sword light. However, whenever it came across some realms along the way, it would move closer to them. It seemed that it was looking for something. In its eyes, perhaps the realms that were wreathed in cold mist all looked the same. Not only were they scattered, but there were also many of them, which made it easy for it to confuse them. Even for it, it still needed to get closer to find its target. Yu Yuan followed it and watched it approach a star wreathed in cold mist with anticipation. When the thick cold mist seemed to be attracted by it and rushed towards it, it left in a hurry, disappointed. Then, it moved on to the next star with cold mist. During this time, the 8th grade Azuras on some of the stars with cold mist clearly sensed its approach. What was strange was that not only did those Azura warriors vaguely sense its presence not move, but they even seemed to be worshipping it. They worshipped it as if it were a god. It seems that you're quite popular in the domain of Firefly. Yu Yuan chuckled, thinking that if all the Azura experts in this starry river had the same attitude towards the giant bear, he should be safe. Just like this, it traveled and stopped, passing countless stars with cold mist. Finally, when it approached another star and looked at it, it was no different from the other stars with cold mist. The thick cold mist that surrounded the star finally disappeared. Both the cold mist and the realm barrier that was as thin as a sheet of ice remained silent. Upon seeing it, Yu Yuan's eyes shone with the light of excitement. Immediately afterwards, she charged towards the star and went through the realm barrier without any hindrance. A snowy world immediately spread out under Yu Yuan's feet. He spread his soul and flesh aura everywhere, but he didn't sense the existence of any living beings. This world of ice and snow that the frigid snow bear had been searching for a long time was desolate and cold. Yu Yuan didn't understand why. He didn't know why this powerful frigid snow bear had gone through so much trouble to find this place. At least, he didn't see anything special when he looked around. When the strong frigid snow bear was about to land, it began to beat its chest and roar. Crack crack, crack crack crack. The thick layer of ice suddenly cracked open and a deep sea was revealed. Chapter 13-17. Looking down from the sky, the vast deep sea looked like a broken mirror after the ice and rocks on the surface had shattered. Cold mist and white clouds that could be seen with the naked eye started to flow towards the depths of the sea. Yu Yuan left the frigid snow bear's shoulder and floated in midair. He looked down at the deep sea and the flowing cold mist on the surface of the sea in astonishment. Then, he sensed in secret. The pieces of ice gradually sank to the bottom of the sea, but the waves on the surface were still. This unfamiliar world didn't look very eye-catching from the outside. It didn't have any extraordinary cold power, but when he went inside, he immediately felt something unusual. The moment the ice on the surface of the sea shattered due to the frigid snow bear's roar, the entire world changed. An extremely vast cold current started to pour in from the Firefly star domain, causing the cold aura of this icy world to become several times stronger. The ice on the surface of the sea shattered, as if some mysterious formation had been activated. It caused the sea and the entire cold world to gather cold power towards the sea of stars outside. Yu Yuan looked puzzled. He looked deeply at the frigid snow bear and used his keen senses to feel. This rank 9 frigid snow bear didn't activate any bloodline secret arts or release a miraculous aura to gather the cold power in the outer realms. However, with his previous experience, Yu Yuan still wasn't sure. It was because it didn't do anything when it passed by other stars surrounded by cold mist. But the thick cold mist would still gather and try to become a part of its body. The frigid snow bear's mountainous figure suddenly shook its head. Its enormous hand pointed at the mirror-like surface of the sea, indicating that the sudden change in this world had nothing to do with it. It was because of the sea below, or something at the bottom of the sea, gathering cold power and gathering it to the bottom of the sea. I think I've heard of it somewhere before. Yu Yuan stilled and suddenly thought of his experience in Thousand Bird Realm, and the secrets he learned after communicating with Zhou Yu, Chen Qinghuang, and the others. Therefore, he asked in surprise, "An entrance to the frigid abyss?" The snow bear chuckled and nodded. Yu Yuan was secretly shocked. He already knew that at the bottom of Howren's frigid abyss, there were 7 magical pits that were connected to the so-called frigid abyss mouth. The 7 mouths of the frigid abyss were scattered in the 7 realms of absolute frost, helping the frigid abyss of the 9 serenities draw rich frost energy from the frigid starry river and gather it into the frigid abyss. Chen Qinghuang once mentioned that the mysterious frigid abyss of the 9 serenities was of great importance to Howren. There was an entrance to the cold abyss hidden in the Thousand Bird Realm of the Annihilation Star region. There should be an entrance to the cold abyss somewhere in the universe of Consort Han and Moore's hometown. Otherwise, Consort Han and her sister would not have been able to reach Howren. Yu Yuan was very surprised that there was an entrance to the frigid abyss hidden in the Firefly domain of the Azura race. Since this frigid snow bear knew about it, then, did the other Azura clan elites know about it as well? While Nye Tian was deep in thought, the frigid snow bear began to gesture with great effort. Its enormous paws formed a long shape. The dragon beheading platform? Yu Yuan was astonished. It nodded vigorously. Yu Yuan was stunned. In the next moment, the frigid snow bear sank into the sea with a splash. Yu Yuan looked down and discovered that it seemed to have dove into the depths of the sea in an extremely short amount of time. Its enormous body could no longer be seen. He could no longer sense its presence with his soul and flesh aura. What was it trying to do? Yu Yuan was confused. Before it appeared, Yu Yuan did not summon the dragon beheading platform out of caution. He was afraid that it would cause unexpected trouble. However, he did not have to wait for long. Splash! The enormous frigid snow bear broke through the surface of the sea and revealed half of its body. It held many translucent frost crystals in its enormous paws and offered them to Qin Lai as if they were treasures. After his expression changed, Yu Yuan landed in the bear's closed paws with a whoosh. Every single one of those cold crystals exuded bone-chilling cold energy. Yu Yuan, who had approached them, felt that even his soul was slightly uncomfortable. However, The moment he laid eyes on those cold crystals, he actually felt a sense of familiarity. He suddenly remembered that he had been imprisoned by Yuan Fu of the frigid Yin sect with a dark realm cold well. The dark realm cold well pieces had a similar aura to the frost crystals this frigid snow bear was holding. Moreover, the core structure of the dark realm cold well seemed to be the same. At this moment, he suddenly missed Consort Han. If the awakened Consort Han were here, she would be able to give him an accurate answer immediately. This was because it was Concubine Han who had brought the shattered Dark Domain Cold Well into the dragon-slaying platform, where the Frost Dragon was buried. Then, she had refined the Dark Domain Cold Well and turned it into a part of her. As soon as she thought of this, numerous wisps of spiritual light exploded in Yu Yuan's mind. He remembered that the reason why he had broken through the Dark Realm Cold Well was because he had borrowed the power of the Level 10 Frost Dragon in the Dragon Beheading platform. Then, in the Thousand Birds realm, everyone agreed that Lin Zhuyun was the one who carried the Dark Realm Cold Well for the Shura of Gojoseon's Sabonis to descend. In the end, he still had to go through the Dark Realm Cold Well that Consort Han had refined and use the power of the Dragon Beheading platform. There must be a connection between the 7 Cold Abyss entrances, the Azura clan's Dark Realm Cold Well, and the Dragon Beheading platform. Yu Yuan was enlightened. Looking at the cold crystal in its palm, she felt more and more that the well block of the Dark Domain Cold Well was refined piece by piece with such cold crystals. Did the Azura race forge the Dark Domain frigid wells with such cold crystals? And it was you who gave it to me? Yu Yuan asked seriously. It chuckled and nodded. As expected, Yu Yuan took a deep breath. He suddenly understood why the Azura clansmen in the Firefly domain respected it like a god. Even the commander-in-chief, Alonso, respected it. Alonso ordered the experts to stay away from where it was. He gave it absolute freedom. It turned out that the main raw material of the Dark Realm Cold Well, which could connect to the Dark Realm in any void realm and allow the Shura of Gojoseon's Sabonis to descend and send the Dark Realm cold energy to the Dark Realm, was obtained through it. The core material of the Dark Realm Cold Well, the cold crystals, came from the bottom of the Cold Abyss entrance. It had helped the entire Azura clan. Let me see. With a thought, Yu Yuan summoned the Dragon Beheading platform from his Shun-K meridian. The moment the Dragon Beheading platform appeared, it gave off a white glow and a suction force. One cold crystal after another flew out of the frigid snow bear's palm and merged with the Dragon Beheading platform. Inside the platform, the cold crystals fell to the ground where the giant frost dragon was buried, turned into streaks of icy light, sank to the ground, and merged with the dragon's aura. Among them, there were even bits of icy light that contained the power of spacetime. Yu Yuan was even more shocked. He wasn't too surprised that the ground where the frost dragon was buried could absorb the pure frost energy within the cold crystals. What he couldn't imagine was that there was a tiny bit of spacetime power hidden in the cold crystals. The Dark Realm Cold Well could connect to the mysterious Dark Realm and allow the Shura of Gojoseon's Sabonis to descend. The main material of the Dark Realm Cold Well was the cold crystals because they contained the power of spacetime. The experts of the Azura race had used the power within the cold crystals to create the miraculous Dark Realm Cold Well, allowing it to connect to the Dark Realm. Yu Yuan suddenly understood. The 7 mouths of the frigid abyss are constantly gathering frost energy from the outer realms to the Howran. The existence of the 9 hells frigid abyss is extremely important to the Howran Great Realm. It seems to maintain some kind of balance. Then, who was it that created the 7 mouths of the frigid abyss? Muttering to himself, Yu Yuan looked at the dragon beheading platform in his hand and found that all the cold crystals the frigid snow bear had created had disappeared inside. Pure frost energy was dissipating inside, and the power of spacetime was faintly dissipating. He then remembered that he was able to break the Dark Realm Cold Well with Ruanpu because of the dragon beheading platform. He also remembered that the Shura of Gojoseon Sabonis really wanted to use the Dark Realm Cold Well inside Consort Han's body and the dragon beheading platform that he controlled. And so, Yu Yuan slowly came to an answer. The 7 mysterious mouths of the frigid abyss that were connected to the 9 hells frigid abyss in Howran were created by the joint efforts of the Spacetime Dragon and the Frost Dragon. The purpose was to gather the frost energy from the outer realms and form the 9 hells frigid abyss. And the existence of the 9 hells frigid abyss could maintain and stabilize the Howran Great Realm to prevent some kind of terrible disaster from happening. Then, even more doubts appeared in his mind. The Shura of Gojoseon Sabonis obviously knew that the main material used to construct the Dark Realm Cold Well came from the bottom of the deep sea under his feet. He should also know that there was an entrance of the frigid abyss that could lead to Howran. Why didn't he destroy it? Why didn't he use the entrance of the frigid abyss to sneak into the 9 hells frigid abyss and descend to Howran? Was it only because this frigid snow bear provided them with the special frost crystals used to forge the Dark Realm Cold Well that they received the respect and friendship of the entire Azura race? All kinds of new doubts appeared in his mind. For a moment, he didn't have a clue. Meanwhile, the frigid snow bear had already disappeared into the dragon beheading platform with all the frost crystals it had produced. Yu Yuan, however, had a thoughtful expression on his face as he searched for the truth of the matter. It was as if he was searching for more frost crystals. Yu Yuan was greatly surprised. He thought that if Consort Han, his fiancée in name, Lin Zhuyun, or any other frigid insect cultivator were here, they would definitely go crazy with joy. The crystals at the bottom of the entrance of the frigid abyss could definitely help them improve their battle prowess. All of a sudden, a cold, beautiful figure suddenly flashed across his mind. He couldn't help but think of his previous life, when he was still Hanch and didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. He had been escorted by that beautiful figure to the 9 hells frigid abyss to capture frost dragons. At that time, the beautiful woman's cultivation base wasn't as high as it was now, but her fame and beauty had already spread far and wide. She had accompanied him everywhere to prepare for the rebirth of his life, and had even ignored his bad reputation in the later years of his life. Everyone had regarded him as a poisonous scorpion, and feared that they wouldn't be able to avoid him in time. However, that beautiful figure had always been by his side, and didn't dislike him at all. Chu Yao's words, Zhu Huan's and Fu Xuanwen's theories, and his subsequent inquiries. It made him realize that the days before he, as Hanch, took the reincarnation pill had been very dark and extreme. It could even be said that everyone hated him. When he thought of the person who had been by his side during that time, he felt even more moved. Perhaps these strange frost crystals can be of some help to her. Even if she doesn't need them, her disciple will definitely be able to use them. Yu Yuan thought to himself. It wasn't long before the frigid snow bear broke through the surface of the sea again. As expected, it was holding pieces of sparkling, translucent frost crystals in its huge palm. It presented them to Nye Tian with a smile. This time, before the dragon beheading platform swallowed them whole, Yu Yuan cut off a dozen of them and threw them into his ring of cosmos. His actions made the frigid snow bear look at him with a strange expression. Other than the dragon beheading platform, there are other things that can be used. Yu Yuan purposely explained to it. When the dragon beheading platform began to absorb the frost crystals, he narrowed his eyes at the deep sea and said, "Can I go down?" The frigid snow bear panicked the moment he said that. It made a move to stop him, fearing that he would do something stupid. It was obvious that his suggestion put the snow bear in a difficult position. "It's okay. I'm just asking. Don't be so nervous. It's okay if it's inconvenient." Yu Yuan smiled amiably. He had a vague feeling that, with the dragon beheading platform in his hands, he might be able to return to the Howran Great World through the mouth of the frigid abyss below and reappear at the bottom of the frigid abyss. Since the mouth of the frigid abyss was opened by the space dragon and the frost dragon, and the dragon corpses of the two founders were inside the dragon beheading platform, as the ruler, it was very likely that he would be able to pass through it safely. However, it was also possible that he would destroy or even destroy the mouth of the frigid abyss. After all, the founders were already dead, and the dragon corpses were still suppressed in the dragon beheading platform. Ha ha! Seeing that Nyetian didn't insist, the frigid snow bear laughed foolishly again, seeming much more relaxed. Will it cause a lot of trouble if I go down with this thing and pass through the mouth of the frigid abyss? Yu Yuan asked tentatively. He even waved the dragon beheading platform in his hand so that the bear could see and understand what he meant. It nodded repeatedly. Yu Yuan naturally understood, so he immediately dismissed the idea. Got it. I won't force my way in. I'll listen to you. I'll follow whatever you say. The frigid snow bear smiled happily again. Then it sank back into the deep sea to help him collect the magical frost crystals. However, it didn't reappear for a long time this time. Chapter 13-18. In the desolate and empty domain of dark forest. Numerous crystals the size of fingernails were scattered in every direction like broken glass, carrying awe-inspiring sword intent. Jining Shuang, dressed in white, carried the Starfrost sword on her back and stood in the empty void. Of course, this wasn't her first time here. However, this trip felt strange to her, and she knew what the void was. There were no meteors, no warship wreckage, no broken bones, and no supernatural powers. She had no reference point. Therefore, she felt lost shortly after entering this place. However, she soon came up with an idea. She condensed her spiritual power into crystals with the incantations of Sword Tao she had comprehended, and infused them with the sword intent of the Starfrost sword. Then, she spread the frosty crystals across the entire starry river like a net. Every wisp of sword intent resonated with her mind. They were her eyes, helping her explore this brand new, unfamiliar world. She waited calmly. Time was meaningless here. She didn't know how long she had waited. All of a sudden, a wisp of sword intent that she had released finally reacted. Her eyes lit up. After a period of exploration, Qiao Yuling and Qi Yunhong, who were heading towards the domain of Dark Wing, learned that once their souls were separated from their fleshly bodies, their speed would increase dozens of times in the void of the domain of Dark Forest. Therefore, Qiao Yuling also found a rough path to the domain of Dark Wing using Yu Yuan's method. This was also thanks to Yu Yuan telling her that the Void Spirit, the fallen divine tree, Diggs, and the others had all retreated. Only then did she dare to release her nether soul. On their way, the master and disciple chatted from time to time and remained silent. Suddenly, Qiao Yuling's body stiffened. She looked at a crystal that shone with frosty light like a firefly, sensing the awe-inspiring sword intent within it. Her expression flickered, and the nether soul thousands of kilometers away also grew uneasy. Master, didn't young Master Yu say that the domain of Dark Forest is now empty? Then, what is this thing? Qi Yunhong picked his ear and squinted at the cold crystal. He reached out his hand to collect it. It's bright and pretty. Perhaps it's a treasure that sputtered out when the full spirit world exploded. He was suddenly filled with anticipation. He felt that perhaps Yu Yuan had also left something behind and hadn't fully understood the situation here. Qi Yunhong had always felt that he was a proud son of heaven, the darling of heaven. Those setbacks were just the training that the gods gave him. He was destined to stand at the top of the world. His realm had advanced by leaps and bounds in the dark forest star field before he had turned into nothingness. He felt that he could still advance further. Watch out for your dog paws. Qiao Yuling glared at him, which scared him so much that he hurriedly withdrew his hand. "Are you great sword immortal Ji?" Xiao Yuling took a deep breath. Deep inside her gloomy eyes, there seemed to be countless red lightning bolts flashing. Her mind flickered. Before Jining Shuang arrived, she hurried to summon her Yin God back. Her Yin God and Jining Shuang's true body converged at the same time. Her Yin God was naturally faster. Not long after, a dark red shadow fell from the top of Xiao Yuling's head and merged with her. It also made her eyes brighter. She immediately calmed down a lot. Deep inside her sleeves, there were 2 lightning vortexes brewing. As the leader of the Thunder Slaughter sect in outer space, she was also a great cultivator of the Freedom Realm. She wasn't afraid of Jining Shuang. If they really met in nothingness, she might not necessarily lose. However, when she saw Qi Yunhong, who was a burden, next to her, she frowned again. "Great sword immortal Ji? Starfrost sword?" Jining Shuang. Qi Yunhong suddenly realized. Not only was he not afraid, he even grinned strangely. Ignoring Xiao Yuling's dissuasion, the reckless madman went directly to the cold crystal shaped like Jining Shuang's eyes and waved his hand hard as a greeting. "My name is Qi Yunhong. When I was in the Howren Great World, I followed you. No. I followed Senior Hong." He had heard the rumors about Jining Shuang and the god-level alchemist from 300 years ago. He laughed and said, "Great Fairy Ji, we're on the same side. Please don't do anything to me. We just said goodbye to Senior Hong in the Firefly Star Zone not long ago. We went to the Dark Wing Star Zone because of his guidance." As soon as he said this, the cold crystal suddenly became dazzling. "You met him? In the Firefly Star Zone? Tell me the details." Jining Shuang didn't stop there. However, her unique cold voice and her cold sword intent came from the crystal at the same time. "Here's the thing," Qi Yunhong waved his hand, indicating that Xiao Yuling shouldn't be so nervous. "Then," he said casually, "the battle in this part of the Starry River is actually over. The void spirits, the fallen trees, and digs have all left. The immortal bird has also returned to the Dark Wing Star Zone." He repeated what Yu Yuan had told him and said, "We ran into Senior Hong in the Firefly Star Zone. He went to explore the Firefly Star Zone with a 9th-grade frigid snow bear. Great Fairy Ji, you have to be careful. It's best if you don't take risk. The Azura race's commander-in-chief, Alonso, is in the Firefly Star Zone right now." The big-mouthed Qi Yunhong chattered on, spilling out everything that should be said and shouldn't be said. The cold crystal with a refined sword intent flashed like a star. However, after a while, that small piece of shattered star actually left. Jining Shuang seemed to have changed her mind halfway and given up on the idea of coming here. It left just like that? Shouldn't you say thank you?" Qi Yunhong grumbled in dissatisfaction. Seeing the broken star leave and the awe-inspiring sword intent disappear, he shouted again, "Remember, it's the Firefly Star Zone. And there are many rivers of light that look like fireflies in there. You can shut up now." Xiao Yuling shouted angrily. Qi Yunhong laughed and really stopped there. He shrugged his shoulders and his expression returned to normal. "I am indebted to young Master Yu. If he hadn't gone to the Scarlet Sun Empire, I would have been killed by Chu Jing of the Spirit Void sect. How could I be as happy as I am now? Of course I've heard about the conflict between Great Sword Immortal Ji and him in his previous life." After pausing for a few seconds, he said, "I hope they can meet again in the Firefly Star Zone." Xiao Yuling wanted to scold him, but seeing him being serious, she didn't say anything. The two of them continued to travel towards the Dark Wing Star Zone. In an unknown frigid world in the Firefly Star Zone, Yu Yuan stood on the dragon beheading platform and looked at the sea surface from time to time. He had been waiting for a long time. The frigid snow bear had stayed in the sea for much longer than the previous 2 times. He couldn't help but worry. He could tell that the frigid snow bear was a big fan of both this frigid world and the entire Firefly Star Zone. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any accidents. However, since the frigid abyss entrance was involved, it wasn't surprising that something strange would happen. I can't sneak in with the dragon beheading platform. Judging from what it said, if I go down there, I'll only cause more trouble. Yu Yuan was rather frustrated. He could only wait passively, which made him increasingly impatient. He had a good impression of this frigid snow bear. This was because from the moment they had met, this intelligent giant bear had shown him kindness and thought for him in every way. Although it was an outsider beast, it hadn't hurt him. Instead, it had helped him protect Fang Yao and Yuan Lianyao. Even when he had disappeared from the spirit world, it had done its best to get them to the domain of Silver Sand. Then, it hadn't retreated to the Firefly Star Zone until it had been targeted. The frigid snow bear had been waiting for him at the border between the domain of Firefly Star Zone and the domain of Dark Forest. Don't let anything happen to it. He didn't care about the cold crystals anymore. He only hoped that the silly frigid snow bear would break the surface of the sea and show its head again. A long time passed. The enormous shadow of a bear gradually emerged from the sea, occupying a large area of the sea. Yu Yuan's face grew grim. Unlike before, the frigid snow bear wasn't standing on its back. It was lying on its back. It seemed that it had lost the ability to move and suffered serious injuries. Yu Yuan's heart was in his throat. He waited anxiously for a long time. Finally, he saw the enormous frigid snow bear rise to the surface of the sea. It was lying flat on its back. Its broad body was covered in wounds. Many of the wounds were caused by slashes on its thick skin and translucent bones, causing cracks to appear on them. No blood was flowing out of the numerous wounds. It was probably because its bloodline was special and had its own cold power. The blood that was supposed to spurt out had been frozen into ice. Yu Yuan took a deep breath and carefully sensed the aura around her. Its heart wasn't broken. It still had a weak heartbeat. Its soul was weak. After being refined, it turned into snowflakes that drifted in its mind. Yu Yuan was slightly relieved. He observed the wounds and thought calmly. It wasn't dead, but it had suffered serious injuries. Furthermore, they were sword wounds. Howren's sword sect. He soon came to a conclusion. The 9th-grade frigid snow bear had suffered such serious injuries in such a short time. Furthermore, the sword wounds were so obvious. It had to be a so-called Grand Sword Immortal from the Sword Sect. Only a Grand Sword Immortal could have injured it and left such deep sword wounds. Chapter 13-19. Not only were the wounds on the snow bear deep, but some of its bones were also cracked. It was a ghastly sight. However, when Yu Yuan narrowed his eyes and concentrated, he did not detect any obvious sword intent. There was no sharp and piercing feeling. This was somewhat illogical. Sword Sect, Great Sword Celestial, one name after another flashed through his mind. Those names corresponded to different titles. He had already memorized them by heart. He even had a rough idea of the characteristics and profoundness of each of them. The Great Sword Celestial who ranked 3rd was Sword of Destruction, Du Yuan. The 4th was Sword of Starfrost, Jining Shuang. The 5th was Sword of 7 Emotions, Lu Hongpeng. The 6th was Sword of Blue Flower, Su Qingma. The 7th was Sword of Destruction, Fan Heqing. These were all familiar and well-known great sword celestials who could often be seen in Howren. Yu Yuan had more or less sensed some of their auras in the scabbard because he had comprehended the 9 slashes of raising the sky. He more or less had some understanding. He did not understand, but had only heard of them. Taking a deep breath, Yu Yuan's expression became serious. He stepped on the dragon-slaying platform and closed the distance between him and the snow bear. He no longer paid special attention to the sword intent, but sought a feeling gradually. He felt a kind of depth and weight from the snow bear's wounds, from the depths of its broken bones. It was as if there were mountains and precipitous ridges hidden in each of the sword lights, slashing down with great force. Yu Yuan's heartstrings were taut. Boom! The frigid snow bear that had floated to the surface of the sea suddenly sank into the depths of the sea. A terrifying force that was heavy enough to distort the force field suddenly exploded from its flesh. Yu Yuan watched it fall to the bottom of the sea, and the injury on its chest worsened again. Sword of Earth, Gu Xingkue. With a gloomy face, Yu Yuan gritted his teeth and shouted this name in this unknown land of absolute cold. In the current Haoran sword sect, he was Gu Xingkue, who was known as the Sword of Earth and ranked second among the great swordsmen. From the information he had obtained in this life, the supreme seat that had been left vacant after Nie Qingtian's death had been taken by him, allowing him to leap from the peak of the carefree realm to the primordial soul stage. This matter was pushed forward by the three high sects, the Devil's Palace, and the Goblin Temple, and there were no objections. The reason for this was said to be because the Sword Dao incantation he comprehended was compatible with Haoran's Earth. With him presiding over the Haoran world, the Earth would have a backbone, and the entire Haoran would have an extra tough shield. Gu Xingkue's way of the sword was not known for its sharpness, nor was his sword intent apparent. The so-called Haoran Gaia was actually famous for its defense. It was said that once he left Haoran, his combat power would decrease significantly, but as long as he stayed in Haoran, his combat power would increase tremendously. Perhaps because of the uniqueness of his way of the sword, he was given the title Haoran's Shield, which was acknowledged by all sides. Haoran needed him, or rather, Haoran's Earth defense line needed him. Therefore, after Nie Qingtian's death, he was pushed to the supreme seat without any objections. Whoosh! While Yu Yuan was deep in thought, the frigid snow bear surfaced from the sea once more. Its chest, waist, and abdomen were facing the sky. More bones were broken, and its organs were showing obvious signs of rupturing. Just as Qin Lai was about to approach, energy erupted once more. Boom! The frigid snow bear that had just surfaced suddenly sank to the bottom of the sea, as if its wide body was being suppressed by an invisible mountain. Yu Yuan's face was ashen. He did not expect the Sword of the Earth Gu Xingkue's way of the sword to be so domineering and terrifying. It continued to erupt and injure the frigid snow bear. Yu Yuan couldn't help but think of the one and only contact he had with Gu Xingkue 300 years ago before he became the sect master of the Medicine God sect. At that time, he had just met Jining Shuang. Jining Shuang had stayed with him for a while in the Medicine God sect, and she had secretly developed feelings for him. Not long after returning to the Sword sect, she had made a fuss about coming to the Medicine God sect to ask for medicine. At that time, Jining Shuang's master was not in Haoran. He had gone to war in outer space. The person in charge of the Sword sect was Gu Xingkue, the Sword of the Earth Gu Xingkue, who had been stationed in Haoran for many years. Everyone in the Sword sect saw Jining Shuang's amazing potential and saw her as a future great sword immortal. Naturally, the Sword sect did everything they could to nurture her. The Sword sect had high hopes for her and did not allow anyone to hinder her growth. Gu Xingkue did not want to see Jining Shuang trapped in love, so he secretly came to the Medicine God sect with his own soul. He found the current sect master of the Medicine God sect and used the power of the Sword sect to suppress the matter. Even though he was only a Een soul, the alchemists and cultivators in the Medicine God sect all felt the changes in heaven and earth. The moment Gu Xingkue arrived, the alchemists and cultivators of the Medicine God sect felt the gravity of the earth suddenly increase by dozens of times. Those people felt as if their feet were rooted to the ground and could not move. At that time, Yu Yuan had not stepped onto the path of cultivation, so he was almost pressed to the ground. It was as if there was an invisible heavy mountain pressing down on everyone's backs. The sword of the earth Gu Xingkue had used the power of his sword Dao to intimidate the cultivators and alchemists of the medicine god sect. Everyone felt the terror he brought. It was only after Gu Xingkue's Yin spirit left that Yu Yuan suddenly relaxed. She went to find her master in a panic. She knew that Gu Xingkue had come, but she had specially come to warn him not to hinder Jining Shuang's future in the way of the sword. After a long discussion, his master dispelled Gu Xingkue's worries with a reason, so Gu Xingkue did not continue to be aggressive. The reason given was that Hanch's life was at most 100 years. 100 years to Jining Shuang was like the blink of an eye. It would not delay Jining Shuang's path at all, so Gu Xingkue did not have to worry too much. After knowing the inside story, Gu Xingkue left with peace of mind and did not pay much attention to the matter. That was indeed the case. Towards the end of Hanch's life, although he kept thinking of ways to extend his life, the limit of his lifespan was still 100 years. If he failed to reincarnate, he would disappear. That life was too short, so he did not have the chance to meet Gu Xingkue again. All his memories of this person were of Gu Xingkue's Yin soul descending. Due to the change in the laws of the earth, he was forced to lie on the ground. Many years later, every time he thought of that scene, he would feel aggrieved and unhappy. But when he thought of Gu Xingkue's realm and combat strength, just the descent of his Yin soul, the corresponding change in the laws of heaven and earth, and the trust the five supreme forces had in this person. Even if he fell and turned to refining poisonous pills, creating many inhumane poisonous pills, he knew that he was not Gu Xingkue's match. Of course, he could not compete with the sword sect. Gu Xingkue Yu Yuan's expression was dark. He felt even more depressed as he muttered this name. The past is the past, and the present is the present. When I was Hanch, I could not do anything to you because I could not embark on the path of cultivation and my lifespan was too short. But in this life, you, Gu Xingkue, can forget about covering the sky with one hand. With your Haoren Gaia, you can make me crawl again. Although alchemists were respected in Haoren and had a high status, their combat strength was not enough. To Gu Xingkue, who stood at the top of the pyramid and was a nascent soul realm expert, he was a little alchemist who could not embark on the path of cultivation and had a limited lifespan. No matter how talented he was in alchemy, what could he do? If he wanted to suppress him, he could do it casually. But now it was different. After he was reincarnated, he had a nearly infinite lifespan. Because of the life altar and the wonders of his own body, he had endless possibilities and a vast future. The Haoren Gaia Gu Xingkue was no longer an unattainable existence. There was also a possibility that he could cut him down. He gradually calmed his turbulent mind. Then, he finally saw the enormous shadow of the frigid snow bear appear from the sea and rise to the surface of the sea again. The residual power of the attack was weaker than the last. The hidden sword energy seemed to have been completely exhausted. The level 9 frigid snow bear was on the verge of death. Sword wounds crisscrossed all over its body. Many of its bones were shattered, and its vital organs were torn open. The only thing that comforted Yu Yuan was that the essence of its blood was frozen and crystallized by the frost energy and did not fly away. Ah! Suddenly, Yu Yuan noticed that there were translucent icy lights flashing in the gaps between the bear's tightly clenched paws. Looking closely, Yu Yuan knew that there were pieces of frost crystals in the bear's paws. It hadn't let go all this time. The frost crystals were collected by this simple-minded snow bear for him. The reason why it had been severely injured by Gu Xingkue, who was known as the Shield of Haoren, was most likely because it had touched a certain place at the mouth of the frigid abyss. Because of this, Gu Xingkue, who was responsible for guarding the land of Haoren, was alerted. Then, Gu Shinkue waved his sword and sent a terrifying sword light towards the mouth of the frigid abyss, causing the bear, who had been digging for frost crystals, to be reduced to its current state. The frost crystals that hadn't been exposed shone with a dazzling light. They were like cold swords that pierced Yu Yuan's chest. Yu Yuan was both touched and heartbroken for this simple-minded snow bear. What a stupid bear! Why did it have to do this? He blamed himself. Chapter 13:20. It was because of those frigid crystals that the Sword of Earth, Gu Shinkue, had severely injured the snow bear and put it in such a miserable state. The snow bear had collected the frigid crystals for him. Yu Yuan let out a faint sigh and ordered the dragon beheading platform to stay in the air for a while before descending. He stood on top of the frigid realm snow bear's abdomen, where the sword wound was the deepest. He stared at the enormous, bloody hole that led to the snow bear's vitals. The first thing he thought about was how he could help the snow bear recover. At the very least, he had to wake its soul up and let it regain its consciousness. Only in this way would Yu Yuan know how to better help it recover from its injuries, and also figure out what secrets were buried at the bottom of the mouth of the cold abyss. The dragon beheading platform? Yu Yuan raised his head and looked at the long, sparkling white stone. With a thought, he summoned a cold current that was closely related to the frost dragon. The cold current was formed by condensed frost power, and contained the power of the frigid crystals. However, the cold current, which clearly contained a frigid aura, fell like a silver waterfall, and didn't have any healing effect on the enormous, hideous wound on the snow bear's abdomen. It won't work. Yu Yuan frowned and pondered whether he could teleport the frigid realm snow bear directly into the dragon beheading platform. With this thought, wisps of his soul will spread out around the frigid realm snow bear and the dragon beheading platform in an attempt to establish a profound connection. Just like when he had led Consort Han into the dragon beheading platform, he wanted to bring the frigid realm snow bear with him. Unfortunately, the snow bear floating on the icy sea didn't move at all. It still didn't work. Yu Yuan was troubled. He thought that perhaps the frigid realm snow bear's body was too large, or perhaps this strange beast's soul didn't contain his aura, so it couldn't be accepted into the dragon beheading platform. Therefore, he thought of another way. What was seriously injured was the strange beast's body and soul, blood and soul. Thinking of this, his eyes suddenly lit up. Without hesitation, he summoned Gendo's blood prison from his meridians. Yu Yuan snorted softly as he held this evil weapon that everyone in the world knew about. With a whoosh, his Een spirit directly entered the small world inside the interweaving blood threads. Among the many intersecting blood threads, there were 7 intersecting points that were extremely eye-catching. As the wielder of this blade, I order all of you to refine the essence of your blood and soul. Let it flow towards the wound in the snow bear's body and nourish its injured soul. Yu Yuan's Een divinity spread out her thoughts in this terrifying blood-red world where the threads of blood interwove. In the meantime, he secretly activated the Great Een Soul spell. In this strange and bloody world, his Een soul constantly changed. From time to time, it was like a ferocious and terrifying demon god. From time to time, it was like a surging blood vortex that wanted to swallow all souls. From time to time, it seemed to transform into thousands of crimson sword lights in this illusory domain of dark forest. His Great Een Soul spell had improved, and he could now create endless changes. These changes were surprisingly effective against the strange beast that was gathering blood and soul here. He waited patiently. Soon, the 7 largest blood souls, which were also the refinements of the 7 previous owners of the demonic blade, had succumbed to his threats and temptations. One blood-colored river after another flowed out of the 7 clusters of blood souls into the outside world. As the streams of blood flowed, They also extracted bits of power from the numerous blood-colored sparks and infused them into the streams. Obviously, Yu Yuan's threat was effective. With a thought, his Yin spirit withdrew from Gendo's blood prison. Narrowing his eyes, he indeed saw 7 fine blood threads flying out of Gendo. They first flowed towards the most terrifying wound in the snow bear's abdomen, which looked like a giant hole. Looking at the 7 slender crimson rays of light, he suddenly thought of the 7 abominations of the alien demons. At the border of the domain of Firefly, he and the frigid snow bear had flown towards the river of sword lights. Xiao Yuling and her master had also entered the domain of dark forest. The 7 abominations had secretly left. It probably wanted to find a paradise in the domain of Firefly and expand its strength freely. Yu Yuan had seen the 7 abominations' departure, but he hadn't tried to stop it. At this moment, watching the 7 blood threads that contained blood and soul power fuse into the frigid snow bear's biggest wound, he couldn't help but think of the 7 abominations. In a flash, he withdrew his attention and focused on the frigid snow bear's cracked internal organs. It's working! He saw with great clarity that the 7 fine blood threads that had flown out of Gendo's blood prison had started to sew up the wounds on the frigid snow bear's internal organs like needles and threads. At the same time, faint soul lights flew towards the frigid snow bear's brain. These abnormalities caused him to be greatly energized. Don't worry. You've only lost some blood and soul power temporarily. When this matter is over, when it recovers, and when my Yang spirit is cast, I will use my Yang spirit to control you. In the most intense place of the war in the outer domain, I will let you drink blood and souls to make up for it. He sent a wisp of his consciousness back to the bloody world inside Gendo to comfort the 7 enormous blood souls. He knew that the 7 previous owners of the demonic saber had suffered from the backlash and turned into blood souls. They still had simple intelligence and could understand his thoughts. Otherwise, those blood souls wouldn't have been so obedient after his self-awakening in his first life. They wouldn't have chosen to cooperate even though they were extremely unwilling after he had made his stance clear and even threatened them. The frigid snow bear's internal injuries were quietly repaired by the power that Gendo had spat out. Its soul was also slowly being nourished. Yu Yuan observed quietly. He knew that although the process was slow and required a lot of time, once the frigid snow bear woke up and was able to use its own power, everything would be sped up. One who survives a great disaster is bound to have good fortune in the future. Don't worry. I'll remember what you've done for me, Yu Yuan. After letting out a sigh of relief, he began to think seriously. How did this frigid snow bear come into contact with the frigid abyss and alert Gu Xingkue after it sank to the bottom of the sea? Did Gu Xingkue leave a wisp of soul awareness on the other side of the frigid abyss? It was very likely. If the existence of the 7 frigid abyss mouths was to maintain some kind of balance in Howren and was indispensable to Howren, then the forces led by the 5 supreme experts would definitely guard them closely. In fact, even the Shunhun sect and the Tongtian Trading Company would pay attention to the frigid abyss mouths and not let anything happen to it. If anything happened, the entire Howren would be affected. Who would dare to be careless? The frigid abyss mouths are located in the Azura race's Firefly domain and the 9 Hells frigid abyss. Gu Xingkue's soul awareness is in one of the frigid abyss mouths to guard against the Azura race? Yu Yuan fell into deep thought. He had a feeling that even the rank 10 Azura race warrior Alonso or the Shura of Gojoseon would not be able to gain any advantage if Gu Xingkue sensed them trying to enter Howren through the frigid abyss mouth. If these two were to alert Gu Xingkue and recklessly charge in, they might have to face the nascent divinities and demon gods of Howren. No wonder Yu Yuan immediately understood why the Azura race experts didn't dare to act recklessly even though they knew about the existence of the frigid abyss mouths and that they could enter Howren. It turned out that someone had always been guarding them against the Azura race's invasion for tens of thousands of years. Why didn't they destroy them? Was it because of those cold crystals? Was it because those cold crystals could be found by the frigid snow bear and refined into dark domain Coldwell? Was it because they could increase the Azura race's strength and allow Sabonis to travel to any place in the void through dark domain Coldwell? Was it because of their own race's strength? Or did they know that even if the frigid abyss mouths were destroyed, Howran would create a new one? In this unknown land of extreme cold, Yu Yuan discovered that it was easier for him to come to a realization when he thought about some puzzling things. He didn't know if it was because of the existence of the frigid abyss mouths that could enlighten him. Seeing that the frigid snow bear's injuries were slowly recovering due to Gendo's forced bloodletting in the blood prison, Qin Lai was slightly relieved and released his Yin soul to wander around this world. There were many snowy mountains and glaciers. The icy plains were vast, but there were no signs of human habitation. There were no destroyed buildings, no broken walls, no signs of battle, no flowers, birds, or insects. The entire world was empty except for the constant influx of cold energy from the outer realms. This was a world that had not been developed, or deliberately ignored or forgotten. Qin Lai's Yin soul wandered around for a while, but didn't find anything special. The only mysterious place, the deep sea where the frigid abyss mouths existed, was something he didn't dare to explore. When his Yin soul contacted his true body, he suddenly had a strange feeling. It was as if he had gained an extra eye that could see further and more clearly. The dragon beheading platform. His Yin soul and his true body shook at the same time. Then, to his surprise, he discovered that whatever the dragon beheading platform could reflect on was reflected in his sea of consciousness and soul. And this rare dragon-slaying platform seemed to have finally shown a new miraculous effect after repeated improvements. Just like Lu Ying's meteor eyes back in the day, this dragon beheading platform, which was originally located in this extremely cold world, actually illuminated the starry sky outside. The combination of the residual power of the dragon of space and Frost Dragon's cold energy had created such a wondrous realm. It's been upgraded. Yu Yuan's lips curled into a smile. He knew that the power he had obtained from the totem poles in the domain of Dark Forest, the frost crystals he had fused with, and the eggshell of the purple-gold dragon egg had all contributed to the dragon beheading platform's transformation. Woe, in this extremely cold world, the star shrouded in cold mist is the one that moves. At this moment, through the changes in the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan sensed carefully and immediately realized that the star that contained the secret of the frigid abyss had been floating all this time. He also suddenly realized why this frigid snow bear had to go through so much trouble to find this star. It was because there were too many realms in the domain of fireflies, and this star wasn't fixed. Just like the Milky Way fairy back then, its position was constantly changing. Therefore, even the frigid snow bear had to search for it in the nearby areas. Yu Yuan, who was in this world of ice, was caught off guard and let out a cry of surprise. Through the dragon beheading platform above his head, he actually saw a familiar figure appear out of nowhere in the vast starry sky. It was Shirala, the Azura expert who carried a dark realm Coldwell and possessed a rank 9 bloodline. At this moment, Shirala had a terrified expression on her face. More than half of her body was stuck in a dark realm Coldwell, just like Consort Han back then. She was anxiously searching everywhere for something. There were tiny crystals on the tip of her eyebrows, neck, and cheeks that emanated cold sword intent. The crystal even glittered from time to time, releasing pure light that looked like stars in the sky. When the light appeared, Yu Yuan's expression immediately became interesting. Chapter 13:21. Shirala was clearly hiding from something in fear. Compared to most of the male Azura race warriors, she was thin and weak. However, the natural silver armor covering her shoulders and the protruding spikes shone with a cold metallic luster. However, the thorns that were as sharp as the blades of divine weapons were also wrapped in tiny crystals. It looked as if a layer of frost had formed on her body. The dark domain cold well that trapped her body could be regarded as a magical armor that protected her waist and abdomen, preventing her from receiving most of the damage. The well bricks were made of the same material as the cold crystals Yu Yuan had obtained from the cold abyss snow bear not long ago. However, the bricks that made up the dark realm cold well contained the dark aura of a mysterious dark realm. It was cold, dark, evil, and seemed to be able to corrode one's heart and soul. The scene displayed by the dragon beheading platform was reflected in Yu Yuan's sea of consciousness and his Yin soul. It allowed him to clearly see what was happening in the outside world, even though he was in an extremely cold place. Star Frost Sword Schwanger, Yu Yuan muttered. Judging from the unusual sword light coming from the crystals on Shiala's body, he was certain that this rank 9 female Azura warrior had just fought with Jining Shuang. Obviously, Shirala was the loser. While Yu Yuan was surprised to see the sword light of the Starfrost sword in the Azura race's Firefly Star domain, he also felt a hint of anticipation and joy. This wasn't Howren. The experts of the 5 supreme forces didn't appear. If they could meet here, and if Jining Shuang was alone, it would save them a lot of trouble. However, he couldn't be sure if Jining Shuang was the only one who had a conflict with Shirala. Through the floating dragon beheading platform, he was surprised to find that Shirala, who was slightly injured but not seriously injured, was using a unique bloodline secret art to search for something with the help of the dark realm cold well. Many tiny bolts of lightning flew out of Shiala's abdomen and entered the well bricks, activating some kind of innate ability. With the help of the marvelous dark domain cold well, they silently explored the outside world. Joy gradually appeared in Shiala's eyes, as if she had sensed something. It can't be. When Yu Yuan discovered that the level 9 Azura clan elder had activated the dark domain cold well, he suddenly changed his direction and headed towards the extremely cold world he was in. He could not help but laugh bitterly. It turned out that what Shirala was looking for was the cold star hidden at the mouth of the cold abyss. Just like the frigid snow bear, she and the frigid snow bear had to spend a lot of time and effort to find this ordinary-looking realm, which wasn't a fixed location in the domain of fireflies. The snow bear's bloodline and special characteristics allowed it to communicate with the realm it was in. As long as it got close enough, it would be able to confirm its location. What Shirara used was naturally the dark domain cold well that was stuck in her, and through the many well bricks that came out of it. Yu Yuan suddenly became cautious. He pulled himself together and began to think about the consequences of Shiala's arrival. Of course, Shirala had brought the dark domain cold well with her. That well could communicate with the dark domain and allow the Shura of Gojoseon, Sabonis, to descend directly. The experts of the Azura race could also enter this world through Shirala and the dark domain cold well. Other than that, Jining Shuang, who was chasing after her, or the other Freedom Realm experts of Howren who were with Jining Shuang, or even the person who wielded the black-yellow Dao banner, could charge over. When his thoughts reached this point, Yu Yuan's face was full of worry and unease. However, what he feared would happen. No matter how worried and repulsed he was, the female Azura race warrior, who had been injured by the Sword of Starfrost, still managed to accurately follow the guidance of the dark domain cold well, and find this unremarkable star in the Firefly domain. Whoosh! After ascertaining the location, Shirala whizzed straight over. When she reached the cold mist surrounding the realm barrier, the dark domain cold well, that was blocking her and acting as a defensive armor suddenly became spacious. Thick frost energy flowed from the realm barrier and merged with the dark domain cold well, before being ignited by her bloodline. Bang! The icy flames ignited from the well and burned Jining Shuang's remaining sword energy and unique sword energy into ashes. Shirala wanted to make sure that not a single crystal of the Sword of Starfrost was left behind before she entered that strange world. What she was afraid of was that Jining Shuang could find her through any wisp of sword intent. Finally, all the crystals were burned away, and not a single wisp of sword energy remained. Only then did she relax and turn the dark domain cold well into a cold stone shield under her feet. It took her through the realm barrier and into the magical world Yu Yuan was in. Then, the moment Xia was pulled in, he lowered his head to take a look and saw the frigid snow bear lying on its back on the still surface of the deep sea. She also saw that this snow bear that occupied a large area of the sea was covered in crisscrossing wounds. A crimson gendo that was as red as blood stopped above the snow bear's chest. Bolts of bloody lightning flew out of the gendo and seemed to be hurting the heavily injured and unconscious snow bear. The dragon beheading platform was floating in the air, and the familiar Yu Yuan was looking at her in shock. The eyes of this female Azura warrior, who had been fighting for many years, instantly turned red. The sharp spikes on her shoulders and knees suddenly shone with a dazzling light. "Damned human junior!" Shirala first shouted angrily in the Howran language, and then let out a furious howl. The frost energy behind her merged with her bloodline's secret art and formed a frost storm. There were many cold icicles, her blood essence, and her bloodline's secret art in the storm. Before Yu Yuan could explain himself, the Arctic storm, which covered an area of over 10 mu, came crashing down like a giant umbrella. In this world of absolute frost, Shirala, an elder of the Azura race, seemed to have the help of a god. She had activated her bloodline and unleashed a ferocious attack that naturally gathered vast amounts of frost energy. In fact, he even shattered a nearby glacier with his bloodline magic, causing many sharp pieces of ice to fly into the storm. Crack! Crack! Inside the frost storm, his Een spirit and body merged into one. Even though Yu Yuan was prepared, he still suffered. This strong body that had been tempered for a long time endured thousands of attacks every second under the impact of countless ice pieces, rocks, cold light, and icicles. If it wasn't for him, and he was just a normal Howran Yang spirit, he would have been crushed. His Yang spirit body would have shattered into pieces long ago, and then been crushed and destroyed. Not even his bones would be left. With the evil fiend body refining art as the foundation, Yu Yuan's body, which had been cleansed and refined by the strange life alter time and time again, was much tougher than most Yang spirits. He only felt pain and unspeakable suffering. However, even though his body had suffered such a blow, it was only a flesh wound. "I know your body is strong, just like those people from the ancient Desolate sect. However, you still have to die." Shiala's expression was fierce as she came above the frost storm and looked down coldly. Her knees and shoulders were covered in cold silver metal spikes that slowly grew longer. Those were the sharp blades she used to kill the great human cultivators and the level 9 Howran Demon King. Looking at her posture, she was about to jump into the frost storm and kill Yu Yuan, this audacious human who dared to hurt the Frost Realm's snow bear. The snow bear's injuries were even more unacceptable to her than her own. She had known since a long time ago that this strange and intelligent snow bear was a great benefactor to their race. The creation of every dark domain cold well was inseparable from this snow bear. The Azura race had an ancient contract with this snow bear, and they were to protect it forever. This was a principle that had been passed down from generation to generation, and every powerful Azura race warrior understood it. The Azura race warriors would always abide by it. The snow bear was not injured by me. The one who injured it was the Sword of Earth, Gu Xingkue. Under the countless cold and sharp blades, Yu Yuan, who had grown impatient, shouted as she tried to summon the dragon beheading platform over. Whoosh! On the other side, the dragon beheading platform suddenly flew over, and the moment it shone on the frost storm, the space around it suddenly twisted. Before Shirala could land, Yu Yuan appeared on the dragon beheading platform in a daze. At this time, he keenly noticed another wondrous feature of the dragon beheading platform. Within a certain range, his true body and his own soul could return to the dragon beheading platform in a breath's time. For example, he was using this wondrous feature of the dragon beheading platform to escape the frost storm in an instant, not giving Shirala any chance to escape. The second wondrous feature. A smile immediately appeared on his face. He knew that he was going through hardships, and the dragon beheading platform had improved after repeatedly benefiting and bringing him surprises. The Sword of Earth, Gu Shinkue. Shirala, who was about to sink into the frost storm, heard this name and repeated it with gritted teeth. Then, she, who had a rank 9 bloodline, stood at the mouth of the storm, stepped on the dark domain cold well that looked like an ice shield, and used her perception to investigate. With her rank and level, it was not difficult for her to find the aura left behind in the wound. The moment she entered, she saw the miserable state of the frigid snow bear, and Gendo floating in the air and shooting rays of bloody light downwards. That was why she lost her cool in anger. At this time, because of Yu Yuan's explanation, she really felt with her heart, and immediately smelled the hidden depth and weight. The spikes on Shiala's shoulders and knees suddenly grew longer, and the light was no longer sharp. This was because she confirmed Yu Yuan's words in her heart. The person who seriously injured the frigid snow bear and left it in such a miserable state was Gu Shinkue, the Sword of Earth. Thus, the extreme cold storm beneath her feet gradually receded and soon dissipated. She frowned, her face full of suspicion. "Why are you here? Also, what are you doing to it with that demonic blade?" "Healing it," Yu Yuan said. He was standing on the dragon beheading platform. His own soul and his body were one, and his entire person was one with the dragon beheading platform. He did not show much fear when facing Shirala. The dragon beheading platform gave him too much confidence and reliance. Add to that his own many wondrous features, he did not fear Shirala at all at this stage. Chapter 1322. Healing. Elder Azura, who had traveled thousands of kilometers to find Nye Tian with a dark realm cold well, looked puzzled. In her opinion, Yu Yuan and this frigid snow bear should have nothing to do with each other. Why would Yu Yuan heal the snow bear after it was injured? Confused, Shiala narrowed his eyes and observed with rapt attention. To his surprise, he discovered that the beams of blood-colored light that had shot out of the demonic saber-blood prison were indeed healing the frigid snow bear's hideous wounds. What surprised her even more was that tiny wisps of soul power had also flown into the snow bear's mind. Shirala suddenly froze. The last time she had met Yu Yuan was in the domain of illusions of the star race. Because of Chao Jiaza and Su Jingyao, they had temporarily joined hands. However, that was all. Not only were they not friends, but they also had conflict. Later, because of Baylor's arrival, the turmoil in the domain of illusions had quickly subsided. After the mysterious disappearance of the floating life realm and the disappearance of the heaven-toppling sword, the heavy responsibility on her shoulders had come to an end. Later, through the mental connection between the dark realm cold well and the Shura of Gojoseon, she was ordered to come to the domain of fireflies. Not long after, she heard that the frigid snow bear, who had helped the entire race, had secretly snuck into the domain of nightmare, which had become the alien battlefield. She heard about the appearance of the void spirits, the new evil ceremony that Diggs had held, and the summoning of the god of the origin world. She didn't know the details. She only knew that when she wanted to investigate, the domain of nightmare had turned into nothingness and was dead silent. The domain of nightmare, which was too strange and full of unknowns, immediately made her give up on the idea. Therefore, she reported it to her superiors. Soon, Alonso, the commander-in-chief of the Azura race, arrived. Alonso told her to pay close attention to the frigid snow bear at the border of the Starry River. She didn't know that the moment the frigid snow bear received Yu Yuan at the border of the Starry River, it took Yu Yuan and flew around the domain of fireflies in search of the star where the frigid abyss was. She only knew that the frigid snow bear had suddenly disappeared. As for her, through the dark domain cold well that she carried with her, she could sense that there was an abnormal movement in the extremely cold world that was regarded as a forbidden area by her clansmen. Thus she came over to check. Along the way, she accidentally bumped into the Sword of Star Frost Jining Shuang. Because this was the Firefly Galaxy, and Jining Shuang was the Howran Sword Immortal, a battle was inevitable when the two met. She had underestimated the battle prowess of the Frost Star Sword Jining Shuang, who had been honed in the dark space zone, had become purer and sharper. Her Sword of Star Frost had become sharper and sharper. The power of the sword art she had learned had skyrocketed again. After a bitter battle, she relied on the dark domain cold well to escape, but she still suffered some injuries. However, through the connection between the dark domain cold well and the absolute cold world, she finally managed to arrive. However, he was surprised to find that the frigid snow bear that had disappeared was also here. And he was seriously injured. Yes, I healed his injuries. I've dealt with him before in the Yulin Star Zone before he turned into nothingness. Yes. Yu Yuan hesitated for a moment and said straightforwardly, "To be honest, you and I are enemies, not friends. I don't know the relationship between you and him, but I have been very harmonious with him since we met. Let's put it this way, he helped me a lot in the Yulin Star Zone." He explained a little. Yu Yuan said again, "He was the one who led me here. He was the one who dug up those strange cold crystals at the bottom of the sea and alerted the Sword of Earth Gu Xingkue, causing Gu Xingkue to hand over his sword and severely injure him. I'm trying to save him, and it seems to be quite effective. You'll understand if you look closely." He paused for a few seconds and said, "That's the truth. If you don't believe me, you can wait until he wakes up and verify it yourself." Standing on the dragon beheading platform, he looked down at Gendo's blood prison, who was still pouring blood and soul into the snow bear because of his coercion. Yu Yuan's expression was calm as he said calmly, "I hope you understand one thing. The reason I stopped and didn't continue to fight with you is because I don't think it's necessary." Shirala listened patiently and digested it for a while. Suddenly she said, Where is the undying bird?" When she spoke of the undying bird, her soul spread out, and her aura spread out. She looked as if she was facing a great enemy. She had been blinded by anger just now, but now she suddenly realized that Yu Yuan had left with Chen Qinghuang. If nothing unexpected happened, the two of them should be together. The news she received from the Firefly Star Zone was that the Undying Bird and the Void Spirit were fighting in the full spirit world. Diggs and Brizette were also involved, and an evil giant tree was madly growing. Yu Yuan had been at the center of the battlefield all this time. She went to the Dark Wing Star Zone. That battle is over, and the god of the origin realm of unknown origins has obtained what it wanted. Brizette's bloodline has fallen back to rank 8, and Diggs obtained an evil fruit and became younger because of it. He will soon enter the ranks of rank 10 bloodline. Yu Yuan repeated the same words to Shirala. Shirala listened very carefully, fearing that he would miss a word. He was startled by every word and was deeply shocked. The Void Spirit, the mysterious evil of the fallen divine tree, the return of Diggs, the infiltration of the god of the origin realm, and other strange things she had never heard of. What Yu Yuan said was what she wanted to know, but didn't dare to explore and understand. "How is Elena right now?" After a detailed explanation, Yu Yuan abruptly changed the topic and asked this question out of the blue. That girl accepted the king's kindness and officially went to the Dark Realm to temper herself. A hint of a smile appeared at the corner of Shiala's mouth. She said with relief, "She will definitely become a powerful Azura of the Dark Realm through the trials. Her future achievements will surpass her father's." Suddenly, Shirala snorted coldly as if she had realized something. "You are the inheritor of the sky-raising sword, and have a connection with the Shunhun sect. We will not forgive you. Boy, when the frigid snow bear wakes up, if I find out that you are lying, I will not forgive you." She was clearly holding a grudge against him. She knew that Sabonis's injuries were caused by the Shunhun sect's scheme. Unless the Shura of Gojoseon comes in person, Yu Yuan pointed at the dragon subduing stage under his feet. "With this in my hands, you alone will not be able to stop me. Also, the great sword immortal of the sword sect happens to be in the Firefly Star Zone. I have help." "Help? Are you dreaming? Why would the Sword of Star and Frost, Jining Shuang, help a kid from the Shunhun sect?" Shirala sneered. "The way I see it, if she knew that you were here, she would abandon me and go kill you first." She was well aware of the internal turmoil in Howran. She knew that the 5 supreme experts of the Sword sect were at loggerheads with the returning Shunhun sect. Moreover, since they were all from Howran, they had moved their battlefield to the Starry River to avoid the destruction of Howran. Since they didn't have to worry about anything in the Starry River, wouldn't they fight to the death the moment they met? Yu Yuan smiled, but didn't explain. Shirala had never been to Howran, nor had she experienced the war in the forbidden land of the fallen moons. She clearly didn't know much about his relationship with the Sword of Star and Frost. The expression on his face, the calm and arrogant look on his face, made Shirala suspicious again. After a moment of pondering, the Azura elder tried to find a topic to talk about. Why would the Sword of Star and Frost appear in the domain of Firefly? "Why not?" Yu Yuan asked. "This domain is considered a forbidden area in Howran. No one is allowed to enter." Shirala looked down at the sea under her feet as she spoke. "Those who can carry Dark Realm frigid well are qualified to know a secret. Howran needs the stability of the domain of Firefly. They won't let the people of the domain of Firefly fall into misery and suffering. Therefore, the 5 supreme experts of the Sword sect have unified and made the domain of Firefly a forbidden area. This Sword of Star and Frost actually dared to ignore Howran's ban and come here." Shirala looked very angry. From the looks of it, she couldn't wait to go to the sect master of the Sword sect and complain about Jining Shuang. "Forbidden area, no one is allowed to come here to hunt and kill the innocent." Yu Yuan rubbed his chin and thought for a moment. Then, he understood. It was because the mouth of Frost Abyss was here. If the domain of Firefly was destroyed by war, the Azura clansmen would all die, and the living beings would die as well. This cold domain would probably gradually decline, or even enter a state of withering. Perhaps the rich starry sky cold energy would dissipate or flow to other places. Without the vast cold energy, even if the mouth of Frost Abyss was built in this cold domain, it wouldn't be able to gather cold energy. In that case, there was no need for the mouth of Frost Abyss to exist. As for Hao Chang, he had to choose a new domain and build a new frigid abyss entrance. This would be a huge project even for the 5 supreme experts of the Sword sect. It involved the power of space and time, and it would take a lot of time and effort to open up the domain. Pei Yuling's betrayal and the appearance of the mysterious god of the Origin Realm was a great pressure on Howran. Of course, they didn't want the domain of Firefly to become a land of death. That girl, she really is, the same as before. Yu Yuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. She dared to ignore Howran's ban and charge into the domain of Firefly without hesitation. This temper was definitely Jining Shuang's. She was the only one who dared to ignore the rules, and even break them herself. But why couldn't she fly here? It's awake. Shirala suddenly became excited. She sensed the frigid snow bear's soul and felt rich cold energy actively gathering. It's done. Yu Yuan raised his hand, and Gendo turned into a bolt of scarlet lightning and fell into his palm. The moment the snow bear woke up, the pieces of blood crystals scattered in its wounds suddenly cracked open. Immediately after, a dense blood aura fell onto its enormous body like a sweet rain. Its vitality immediately recovered at an astounding rate. It was clearly fine now. Later on, it would only need to rely on the profound mysteries of its bloodline to resonate with the heaven and earth in order to gradually recover. Chapter 13:23. The frigid snow bear wasn't weak. Back in the dark forest star system, the deep-sea giant winged lizard had charged into the full spirit realm and been devoured by the fallen divine tree. Zhu Huan had also been destroyed in body and soul. It was the only one who dared to use the wind and snow to destroy many plants. It even dared to challenge the void spirit and the fallen divine tree. This was why it was extraordinary. In Yu Yuan's eyes, it was much more intelligent than the deep-sea gigantic winged lizard and even the gray goose the Empress rode on. The reason it had been severely injured was because the enemy it had faced was too terrifying. The Sword of Earth, Gu Xinkue, was the supreme nascent soul of the Hauran realm and the great sword immortal who had replaced Nye Qingtian. There were probably not many experts in the outer realms who would dare to say they were a match for Gu Xinkue. It had only been severely injured, and it had crystallized a large amount of blood essence and sealed it inside its body. This was already very difficult. When the small ice blood crystals gradually cracked, and the vast blood energy that came from them poured back into its enormous body, Yu Yuan knew that it was fine. The Gendo blood prison had been mended, and some flesh energy and soul thoughts had entered it to heal its most serious injuries and prevent them from worsening. Otherworldly beasts like the frigid snow bear relied heavily on the nourishment of their fleshly bodies to recover and awaken their souls. Its soul and beast body were actually inseparable. Unlike the human cultivators of Hauran, especially the so-called righteous sects of the Tianyuan continent, even if their fleshly bodies were weak, they couldn't affect the strengthening of their yin spirit, yang spirit, and main soul. Of course it couldn't. Otherworldly beasts like it and the great demons of Hauran had to rely on their bodies for their souls. Ugh! While Yu Yuan's thoughts were running wild, it let out a low cry of pain and opened its large, innocent eyes with some difficulty. "You're awake?" Shiala of the Azura race walked over with a face full of surprise and joy, and appeared in the air above it. Shiara even deliberately activated the sparkling ice shield beneath her feet that was transformed from the dark domain cold well to indicate her identity. She used this method to inform the frigid snow bear that she, Shirala, was not only an expert of the Shura clan, but also had the qualifications to carry a dark domain cold well. This meant that she was highly regarded by Sabonis. However, when the frigid snow bear opened its eyes, it didn't even look at her for a second. It even let out a low growl because it hated her for blocking its vision. Shirala could accurately capture the meaning behind its roar, so it could only awkwardly move aside. Because of this, Yu Yuan was able to appear. Shirala realized that the frigid snow bear, who had helped the entire tribe and was respected by their king, had a gentle look in its eyes the moment it saw Yu Yuan. It wanted to smile, but as soon as it bared its teeth, it began to whimper again. It was as if even such a simple action of smiling would affect its injuries, causing it pain and discomfort. "All right, your recovery is more important. Don't move around." Yu Yuan felt warmth in his heart, and the lines on his face softened as well. He really liked this frigid snow bear, who was constantly trying to please him and had even gotten hurt because of him. Ugh! The frigid snow bear let out a strange sound. With great difficulty, it lifted one of its giant arms and loosened its anchor-like fingers, revealing a few cold crystals that it held tightly. It signaled Yu Yuan with its eyes that it had obtained what Yu Yuan needed, Yu Yuan's heart was filled with gratitude. He shook his head and said, I actually don't need that much. If you have to pay such a price to get these cold crystals, I'd rather not have them. Ugh. It was still growling. Yu Yuan was surprised. Shirala was dumbfounded at the sight of this. As in Shura, number 1 was a person of virtue and prestige. She never knew that the legendary violent bear had such a gentle and honest side. According to the legends passed down from generation to generation, this violent bear was often associated with fierceness, brutality, and bloodlust. Because it had a contract with the Shura race, it was friendly to them. However, when it dealt with other races, whether it was the human great monsters of Howran, the dark spirit race, the radiant race, or even the heavenly devils, it always showed its cruel side. The Shura race's respect for it wasn't just because it was a benefactor to their race. It was also because of its fierce reputation and terrifying battle prowess. As the owner of a dark domain cold well, Shurera also knew of another secret. When the current Shura of Gojoseon Sabonis was young, he accidentally entered an extremely cold place and was almost eaten by the strange ice beasts inside. At the critical moment, it suddenly appeared and saved the young Sabonis. Since ancient times, it had been recorded in the secret scriptures of the Shura clan. Many strong warriors of the Shura clan had received its care and grace. That was why it had shown its friendliness to Sabonis when it had saved him, which had made Sabonis' reputation much more famous after he had returned. There was another saying that the recent generations of Shura of Gojoseon had its shadow behind them. And now, the violent bear, who had a deep relationship with the entire Shura race, was treating a human kid of Howran in such a gentle and even fawning way. Shirala couldn't understand and found it hard to believe. However, there was one thing she could see: Yu Yuan was definitely not the one who heard it, and he was indeed healing it. It insists that you accept it. Shirala clenched her teeth and glared fiercely at Yu Yuan, who kept refusing the frigid snow bear's hand and causing wounds to appear on his arm. Please don't waste its good intentions. At this time, Yu Yuan also noticed that the bear's wound was about to burst open because of his refusal. All right. Yu Yuan landed lightly in the bear's giant palm. He used his cosmos ring and put away the frost crystals. Then, he glanced at Shirala and said, Do you believe me now? What else could Shirala say? Whoosh! The gigantic frigid snow bear was already sitting upright on the surface of the sea like a towering snow mountain. In front of its wide chest, there were many shocking holes. Inside the holes, blood crystals were broken, and blood was flowing out. Please allow me to lend you a hand. Shirala slowly floated down and stopped at the vital part of the bear's chest. The dark domain cold well suddenly transformed back into the structure of a well. An aura that contained spatial vibrations came from the dark domain cold well. Yu Yuan's expression changed slightly. Was she going to send a message to Sabonis and ask Shura of Gojoseon to come? At this moment, Alonso, the commander-in-chief of the Firefly domain, was already there. If Sabonis showed up, then all the strongest warriors of the Azura race would arrive in this star domain. The Azura race had almost exhausted all of their resources. Don't be nervous. Since it's friendly to you, you won't die. Shirala rolled her eyes at Yu Yuan. Then, her expression dimmed. She sighed softly and faced the frigid snow bear again. You know that my king needs to stay in the dark domain for a long time. For him, the slow flow of time in the dark domain will allow him to live longer. The frigid snow bear growled. Shiala's eyes lit up. As if she had heard its permission, she hastily moved the dark domain cold well to its chest where its heart was. The mysterious dark domain cold well stuck to its chest like blocks of ice, as if it were connected to its heart. At the same time, Yu Yuan sensed a surge of vast blood power pouring into the dark domain from the dark domain. The vast amount of blood power far exceeded that of Gendo's blood prison, as it rapidly flowed towards the frigid snow bear. His intuition told him that quite a few ninth-grade outsider beasts, which were only slightly weaker than the frigid snow bear, had been slaughtered by the Asuras. Their blood essence and copious amounts of power had been sealed in the dark realm, so that it could devour them at a critical moment. As the vast amount of blood power poured into it from the dark domain cold well, its aura grew stronger and stronger. Its eyes grew brighter and brighter. Yu Yuan, who was growing calmer and calmer, suddenly pondered the meaning of Xiala's words. The Shura of Gojoseon needed to stay in the dark domain for a long time, and it seemed that the dark domain's long time could allow Sabonis to live longer. What did that mean? Yu Yuan pondered for a moment, and then a thought flashed through his mind. He immediately realized that Sabonis and Diggs were probably limited by their lifespans, just like Beirut. In the entire outer realm, only the great demon god-level heavenly devils had eternal life. The blood demon had to be eliminated from the entire heavenly devil race. The Asura race was the same as the dark spirit race, the light race, the banshees, and other races. Even the Shura of Gojoseon, like Sabonis, had a limit to his lifespan. Sabonis had probably lived long enough, and was about to reach the end of his lifespan. He stayed in the dark domain all year round, and every time he took action, he relied on the dark domain cold well to descend directly. He probably wanted to do as much as possible with his limited lifespan. He wanted to make more preparations for the Asura race. The dark domain was trying its best to prolong his lifespan and help him die of old age slowly. That should be the case. Seeing Xiala's efforts and the frigid snow bear's gradual recovery, Yu Yuan suddenly felt that the human race and the heavenly devils were the ones who were truly favored by the heavens. The nascent divinities of the human race and the great demon gods of the heavenly devils could break through their shackles and possess infinite lifespan. Even someone as strong as Sabonis and the third strongest person in the universe, the Shura of Gojoseon, was limited by the constant lifespan. There would be a day when he would die of old age. Zzzt. Wisps of lightning flashed in the depths of Xiala's eyes. While she was healing the frigid snow bear with the dark domain cold well, she had also secretly established a mental connection with Sabonis. She was reporting everything she had learned from Yu Yuan about the strange things that had taken place in the domain of Dark Forest without missing a single word. She was prepared. As long as Sabonis gave the order to kill Yu Yuan, she would find a way to secretly inform Alonso and gather the forces in the vicinity to kill Yu Yuan. She was confident that she would be able to kill Yu Yuan in the domain of fireflies, take the dragon beheading platform, and everything that Yu Yuan possessed. However, in the dark, after receiving Sabonis' clear message, her face became strange. "You're very lucky, kid." She took a deep breath and snorted, saying, "Because of the great changes in the domain of Dark Forest and the appearance of some unknown evil, our king doesn't want to kill you to the last one. The order I received was to follow his orders and guidance." She glanced at the frigid snow bear. "As long as he doesn't want you to die, you'll be safe in the domain of fireflies." She had seen the frigid snow bear's attitude towards Yu Yuan. She knew that Yu Yuan wouldn't die. Chapter 13:24. Xiala's words made Yu Yuan realize that she had communicated with Sabonis through Dark Domain Cold Well. Yu Yuan smiled bitterly. He didn't know if he should feel relieved or terrified. This meant that his whereabouts in the domain of Firefly had been exposed to Shura of Gojoseon. Shirala had said that he had to obey the frigid snow bear's orders and instructions. In other words, didn't she mean that he had to follow the snow bear and keep an eye on him? Xiala's presence meant that Dark Domain Cold Well was the Shura of Gojoseon's presence. When he thought about how the Shura of Gojoseon and Sabonis could come to him through that well at any moment, Yu Yuan felt as if a fishbone was stuck in his throat. However, there was nothing he could do. Was he still alive because of the upheaval in the domain of dark forest? Yu Yuan pondered for a moment. He felt that even Sabonis was deeply uneasy and afraid of the mysterious god of the origin world. Perhaps Sabonis wanted to learn more about the god of origin realm through him, and he also wanted to know if Sabonis was telling the truth. As the chief of the Azura race, Sabonis should have a way to verify it. For example, he could send someone to the Dark Wing domain and ask the elders of the winged race to see if Chun Qinghuang and Brizette were there. He could also contact the great demon god Bertuns directly. Bertuns had eternal life and was immortal. He was the strongest warrior in the outer realm. As soon as Brizette returned to the Dark Wing domain and communicated with his trusted subordinates of the Dark Spirit race, he would definitely inform this ultimate expert of the god of the origin world's existence and have Bertuns pay attention to it. Sabonis naturally had a way to communicate with Bertuns and learn the truth. Understood. I'll live well. Yu Yuan grinned at the Azura race elder in front of him. Azura, frigid snow bear, his eyes were suddenly filled with thought-provoking thoughts. He looked at Shirala and the giant bear that was as strong as a mountain and was recovering. He felt that the two of them did not have any similarities. What he was thinking was, since the Silver Scale race and the deep-sea giant winged lizards both came from the bloodline of the abyss lizards, the Silver Scale race members all let the deep-sea giant winged lizards move freely in the Silver Scale race's star domain. The Silver Scale clan and the deep-sea giant winged lizards were both close to the sea and had similar scales. The Grey Goose and the Winged clan should have been created by the Undying Bird. The Dark Spirit clan corresponded to the Ruoshuan Divine Tree, and the Void Spirit clan corresponded to the Divine Butterfly. He wondered if the Frigid Snow Bears and the Azura race had the same bloodline origin and came from the same ancestor. However, he couldn't think of any star behemoth that matched the characteristics of the Azuras and the Frigid Snow Bears. Furthermore, he had a feeling that the Azuras and the Frigid Snow Bears came from different origins. But why was the Frigid Snow Bear so concerned about the Shura tribe? He was puzzled. "Kid, you're not allowed to leave this place before it recovers." At this moment, Shirala warned him coldly, clearly telling him that he wasn't allowed to wander around. Yu Yuan shrugged and drove the dragon beheading platform away from Shiala's territory. Since the Frigid Snow Bear was recovering and wouldn't be able to leave anytime soon, Shirala couldn't do anything to him. Therefore, he continued to study the dragon beheading platform in this frigid world to see if there were any other wonders. After the dragon beheading platform's transformation, he continued to try to use the two new features it had gained. The first feature, the dragon beheading platform, could be used as an outsider's eye. It could even see the changes in the starry river outside, which surprised him greatly. In the following days, he continued to study and experiment. However, in the end, he discovered that the dragon beheading platform had only given birth to those two miraculous things. It didn't erupt with many miraculous things at once and possess divine might that could pierce through heaven and earth, as he had expected. In his disappointment, he decided to simply find a snowy mountain and cultivate on it. Time passed quickly. At a certain moment, while he was trying to figure out the wonders of the extreme wisdom soul tempering art and see if it could be combined with the dragon beheading platform, he suddenly sensed that the Golden Hall microcosm was surging with blazing flame energy. The spirit energy tide in his dantian was showing signs of going out of control. Therefore, he activated the 9 lights heavenly wheel. The 9 balls of flame were like 9 little suns as they revolved around his Golden Hall microcosm. He observed with his Een spirit. Then, he discovered that the tainted bloody light from the Golden Hall microcosm would occasionally fall down from his dantian. It fell to the Golden Hall microcosm, the source of his spirit energy, causing the spirit energy to become impure. It also caused his acupoints to swell and hurt when he channeled the 9 lights heavenly wheel. He felt uncomfortable. Cleanse. Sucking in a deep breath of cold air, he sat at the peak of the snowy mountain and calmed his mind to use the 9 lights heavenly wheel again. Then, he discovered that the balls of fire that were as hot as the sun couldn't be maintained for a long time. The cold energy in this world was not beneficial to his cultivation of the 9 lights heavenly wheel. Cold and heat, ice and fire, had always been mutually exclusive. From time to time, a hot, frustrated, and violent aura spread out from the young spirit, which was transforming and about to be completely formed in his small world of chi and blood. The harmful aura evoked the tainted power that had settled in his bones and sank into his golden hall microcosm. Whoosh! While Yu Yuan was frowning and thinking, Shirala was standing on the dark realm cold well and searching from the depths of the sea. Putting away the chaotic thoughts in his mind, Yu Yuan purposely put on an expression of surprise. Is it all right? What happens next won't require any additional blood energy. Shiala's expression was stern. She didn't seem to be in a good mood. That Starfrost sword caused a lot of trouble in our Firefly Star region. Her displeasure was actually because of Jining Shuang. What's wrong? Yu Yuan asked without batting an eyelid. Due to the strange changes in Yinglin Star region, 6 rank 9 bloodline experts like me have arrived besides the Commander-in-Chief. 3 of them learned of the Starfrost sword's arrival through me and worked together to deal with her. Yu Yuan frowned and put on an all-ears expression. He was secretly worried. 3 rank 9 Azura race warriors working together against her. Would she be all right? Shirala paused, her expression turning even worse. I didn't think that her sword path would become even more perfect after the tempering in Dark Realm. I think her true ranking in combat strength is higher than Du Yuan's. She may be the 3rd strongest great sword immortal in the sword sect right now, second only to the 2 veteran nascent soul experts. Yu Yuan's expression shook. The information in Shiala's words shocked and made him proud. 300 years later, that girl actually possessed such terrifying combat strength. 3 of them moved out. 2 of them were injured, and the last one was not involved. Shirala sucked in a deep breath and looked coldly. At least we know one thing. She's looking for the frigid snow bear. Or rather, she's here to find you. Yu Yuan's eyes abruptly lit up. Actually, when he heard that Jining Shuang had appeared in Firefly Star region, he had guessed this. But he wasn't sure. Now that Shirala said this, he finally got a clear answer. So the Starfrost sword who had ignored the rules of the Forbidden Ground Howren had come with her sword was because of him. It was because he, Yu Yuan, was in Firefly Star region right now. Jining Shuang must have learned of this through some means. That was why she had charged in without a care for anything. Is she all right? When he thought this, Yu Yuan became nervous. He was afraid that she would be attacked by the Azura race in Firefly Star region. After all, Commander-in-Chief Alonso was guarding this star region right now. She's fine for now, but I can't say for sure later. Shiala's expression was cold, and she was very unhappy. The Commander-in-Chief has started to pay attention to her and her movements. Yu Yuan, I came to you because I want to know something. Why did she come for you? Jining Shuang had never dealt with the frigid snow bear. Of course, she had come for Yu Yuan. She knew this. But one was the Shunhun sect and the other was the Sword sect. Shouldn't they be like fire and water? She recalled what Yu Yuan had said earlier. He had said that the Starfrost sword could help Yu Yuan deal with her, and he had sounded so certain. It's not a secret. You should know it if you know me better. Yu Yuan narrowed his eyes and answered casually. Then, his attention was suddenly focused on the deep sea in the distance. His expression changed and he said, It went down again. Shiala's expression also changed. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.